we need to take a moment to ask ourselves, was war ever restricted or exclusive to a single domain? It wasn't. The earliest form of conflict, unarmed combat, graduated quickly to land warfare with the use of astra-shastra, with the emergence of the navies adding a new dimension, a strategy that continued for long. However, since the dawn of the 20th century, once man took to the skies, all major wars have seen not only an optimum combination of all three, but a major decisive role of air power, moving on to the use of space and cyber. But a glance into our epics tells us that be it the victory of Sugriv over Bali, Lakshman over Meghnad, the Pandavas vanquishing Dronacharya or Jayadratha, or even the famous Battle of Troy, which lends its name to malware even today, each of them owed its success to effective deception, or use of the cognitive domain as we call it today. Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed has been our ancient noteworthy strategy. So what has changed today is the emergence of irregular threats, confrontations short of declared war, the speed and reach of platforms, the lethality of weapons, the ensuing effects of military actions, and the mass influence of rapid communication, be it genuine or fake. The modern battle space is no longer linear. It is multi-layered, interconnected, and persistent. Not many may have anticipated that the ongoing conflict would not only choke oil and gas supplies, sending prices soaring, but show its consequences across unimagined fields, from currency shocks, fertilizer and food security, chip manufacturing industry, AI and Bitcoin mining, medicine supply, MRI machines, and yes, even contraceptives. It is thus essential to consider not just the target you see through your crosshair, but carefully evaluate the entire target system for second and third order effects. While pursuing military goals, we must retain focus on the reasons for war, the conflict termination criteria, and the desired end state, lest we get drawn into a protracted battle with diminishing gains. We as a nation demonstrated this very well in Operation Sindoor last year, but we do see many contrary examples. It is important to remember that war is not a whimsical adventure of the military forces. It is a vital tool of state policy to achieve a political aim as envisaged by the national leadership. It dictates a whole-of-nation approach and needs all possible means, exploiting all possible dimensions, which only broaden with technology. However, we need to be cognizant and cautious of the fact that while the enthusiasm to keep pace with emerging technology is certainly understandable, neither does it help to have a will-do-it-upon approach, nor is it practical for everyone to claim a share of every domain. Thus, the critical requirement in today's war is not an attempt at ownership, but a focused, coordinated, and mutually supportive strategy without unnecessary attempts at duplication of core expertise. And that's what we intend to dwell on in the next 2 days. Over the course of this seminar, our discussions will explore several interrelated dimensions of MDO. We will begin by examining how intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance must be integrated across domains to create a shared operational picture that enables faster and more informed decision-making. The conversation will extend to the challenge of reimagining operational art in an environment where actions in space, cyber, and cognitive domains interact continuously with conventional maneuvering. Equally important will be our deliberations on how jointness must evolve doctrinally, moving beyond coordination to the orchestration of effects across domains through unified planning processes, interoperable command structures, and shared situational awareness. The seminar will also examine the force development implications of the transformation, including the need to build resilient capabilities, distributed networks, and integrated systems able to function in contested environments. Another dimension we will explore is the role of advanced simulation and wargaming in preparing our forces for multi-domain conflict, enabling commanders to test concepts and rehearse complex operations in realistic digital environments. Finally, we will reflect on the broader strategic context in which these operations unfold, particularly the increasing convergence between the military and the technological, informational, and economic instruments of national power. Taken together, these themes represent not separate discussions, but different facets of a single challenge: how to prepare our defense forces to operate effectively in a battle space where integration, speed of decision, and adaptability will increasingly determine success. To understand why such a conversation has become necessary, we need to reflect on how warfare itself has evolved. Warfare evolves in cycles of adaptation. Technological breakthroughs alter the tools of war, but it is the human institutions, backed by training systems, doctrines, and organization cultures that determine whether these tools produce advantage. The introduction of gunpowder reshaped medieval warfare, but it was the emergence of professional armies and centralized states that translated that technology into military power. The Industrial Revolution introduced mechanization, rail mobility, and mass production, but it was the development of operational planning and logistics systems that allowed industrialized warfare to function during the World Wars. The same pattern can be observed in the emergence of air power. Aircraft alone did not create strategic effect. It was the development of air doctrine, professional training institutions, and operational concepts that enabled air power to transform warfare in the 20th century. Similarly, the revolution in military affairs, characterized by precision-guided munitions, stealth technology, satellite navigation, and network command systems, was employed very effectively in the 1991 Gulf War to achieve unprecedented speed and precision. The domains of warfare have expanded beyond land, sea, and air to include space and cyber, apart from the cognitive domain. They are not independent battlefields, but interconnected layers of an operational ecosystem, with actions in one having consequences in another. A cyber intrusion can disrupt command networks. Satellite denial can degrade navigation and targeting. An information campaign can shape political outcomes even before the first shot has been fired. Recent conflicts illustrate this transformation clearly. In the Russia-Ukraine conflict, tactical formations were able to integrate satellite imagery, commercial communication networks, unmanned aerial systems, and digital targeting applications to strike high-value targets at extended ranges with remarkable speed. Long-range precision fires, guided by real-time intelligence, expose vulnerabilities in logistics network and command infrastructure. The Nagorno-Karabakh conflict integrated unmanned systems with electronic warfare and precision strike capabilities to alter battlefield dynamics rapidly. Persistent surveillance made concealment difficult, while coordinated electronic attacks degraded traditional air defense networks, highlighting a critical lesson. Integration across domains has become as important as technological superiority itself. Modern operations therefore place unprecedented cognitive demands on commanders and warfighters. Traditional military training emphasized domain specialization. While these competencies remain fundamental and indispensable, modern warfare increasingly requires something more: the ability to understand how actions in one domain interact with capabilities in others. The development of human capital remains central to military effectiveness. A commander planning an air operations must now consider cyber vulnerabilities and satellite dependencies. A land formation maneuvering on the battlefield must account for persistent aerial surveillance and electronic warfare. Maritime operations depend on space-based communications and data networks. In other words, the effectiveness of any single domain increasingly depends on its interaction with others. Training systems must thus evolve from being platform-centric to mission-centric. Operators must learn not only how to employ sophisticated systems, but also how to integrate them within complex operational architectures. For the training command of the Indian Air Force, preparing such professionals is both a challenge as well as an opportunity. Our institutions have long been responsible to producing aviators, engineers, and aerospace professionals of the highest caliber. The task before us now is to ensure that these professionals are equally prepared to operate within a multi-domain battle space. The future war fighter will require three essential attributes. First, professional mastery within one's own domain. Second, cross-domain awareness. Third, and perhaps most importantly, adaptive thinking. Commanders must be able to interpret incomplete information, anticipate adversary actions, and take decisions under pressure. Professional military education must therefore evolve accordingly. Joint and cross-domain modules must become integral components of training. Exposure to other services and agencies should occur early in career. Warfighting education must emphasize critical thinking and problem solving as much as procedural proficiency. Another area where training must evolve is in the use of simulation and digital wargaming. Modern battlefields involve interactions between kinetic operations, cyber actions, and information campaigns that are difficult to replicate through live exercises. Advanced simulation and digital wargaming allow commanders to experiment alongside traditional combat operations in ways that would otherwise be impractical or prohibitively expensive. Thus, simulation becomes not merely a training tool, but a laboratory for doctrinal innovation. The training ecosystem must also engage with technological innovation beyond the traditional defense sector. Many of the technologies shaping modern warfare, like artificial intelligence, advanced sensors, satellite networks, and data analytics, are being developed in the civilian domain. Military training institutions must therefore cultivate partnerships with universities, technology companies, and research organizations. The transformation towards multi-domain warfare also requires closer civil-military collaboration. Modern conflict often blurs the boundaries between military and the civil domains. Effective responses to such challenges require coordination between military organizations, government agencies, industry partners, and academic institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, the discussions that will follow will examine MDO from multiple perspectives: operational, technological, doctrinal, and strategic. But I would also like to emphasize that the foundation of that transformation lies in training and education. If we are to operate effectively in a multi-domain environment, we must prepare our people to think and act across domains. We must build institutions capable of continuous learning and adaptation. And we must cultivate a culture of intellectual curiosity and innovation within our defense forces. Run Samwad represents an important step in that direction. By bringing together operators, scholars, and technologists, it provides a space for ideas to be debated openly and new concepts to emerge. I encourage all participants to engage actively in the discussions ahead, to challenge assumptions, and to share valuable insights from personal experiences. The ideas generated here will shape how we prepare for conflicts tomorrow. We look forward to some valuable brainstorming over the next 2 days. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
May I now request Air Marshal Ashutosh Dikshit, Param Vishish Seva Medal, Ati Vishish Seva Medal, Vayu Sena Medal, Vishish Seva Medal, CISC for a keynote address.
Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan, Chief of Army Staff General Upendra Dwivedi, all the esteemed veterans, senior officers, members of the strategic community, officers from friendly countries, industry partners, scholars, distinguished guests, and members of the press. Welcome to this edition of Run Samwad 2026. This is only the second edition of Run Samwad. But what a beginning we have made. A tri-service seminar where practitioners, serving and retired, sit alongside think tank scholars, industry leaders, and civilian defense experts to debate the hard questions about war and warfare. The Indian Air Force is rightly proud to host this edition, and the theme we have chosen could not be more timely: multi-domain operations, an imperative for addressing conventional and irregular threats. Before I get into the substance, let me take a moment to acknowledge something remarkable. We invited research papers on 6 topics with no restriction on branch or rank. The response was over 100 papers. That tells me something important. Our officers think deeply about their profession, even when operational commitments leave little time to breathe. This intellectual energy and this instinct to reflect and question, I think it will be the foundation of everything we are trying to build here. Let me start by talking about the changing face of war, which previous speaker also alluded to. Let me start with the simple question. When does a war begin today? Not when the first shot is fired, By then, the adversary has already been inside your networks, shaping narratives, degrading your satellite links, and mapping your logistics. The opening moves of modern conflict are invisible, silent, and often deniable. And they happen across domains we barely acknowledged a few years ago, like space, cyberspace, the electromagnetic spectrum, and the cognitive space of public opinion. While the nature of war, a contest of wills conducted through organized violence, has not changed, its character is transforming at a pace we have barely witnessed in history. The battlefield no longer unfolds sequentially or phase by phase, it unfolds simultaneously across every domain, where a single tactical action can produce strategic consequences within minutes. So what does history teaches us? History reminds us that warfare has evolved in sudden shifts when new technology arrived at the scene, like gunpowder, like internal combustion engine. But here is the crucial point that history keeps making and that we must never forget. None of the transformations which we have seen were merely technological in nature. Blitzkrieg was not just tanks, it was tanks, air power and radio communication working as one. The Gulf War was not just precision weapons, it was joint integration enabled by a shared command network. Technology provided the instrument. Doctrine and organization provided the music. Both are required. Today's transformation follows the same pattern. What we are witnessing is not modernization for its own sake. It is convergence becoming the central principle of warfare. Now, let me give you some lessons from battlefields of today. And by this way, I will bring out the abstract and put it into the concrete. In Ukraine, the early stages of the conflict showed how a smaller force using commercial satellite imagery, space-based communication, secure digital networks, and precision targeting could impose disproportionate costs on a larger one. The decisive factor was not any single person, not any single weapon. It was the integration of sensing, targeting, and strike into a coherent real-time architecture. So forces that relied on centralized command nodes and exposed logistics proved deeply vulnerable. The lesson: resilience and convergence are not optional, they are the price of survival. And then there is what has unfolded as we speak. In the Middle East, the US-Israel conflict with Iran, which began in earnest in Feb 26, is perhaps an instructive study in multi-domain operations. Consider what has been in play. B-2 stealth bombers flying ultra-long-range strike missions, carrier strike groups providing sea-based air power, submarine operations in the Indian Ocean, Iranian retaliation using coordinated salvos of ballistic missiles and drones, striking across 9 countries at once, and Iranian restrictions on traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. By this, they have weaponized geography and economics as part of the same campaign. No single domain has been decisive. Every domain is contested. The conflict has also demonstrated how quickly regional instability reaches our doorstep. An Iranian naval frigate was recently sunk barely 40 nautical miles from Sri Lanka, in waters where India has vital interest. For us, this is not a distant spectacle. It is a strategic lesson delivered in real time. Closer home, our own experience with Op Sindoor in May 25 underscored, sharper than any doctrine document ever could, that jointness is the need of the hour. Integrated operations, coordinated across services and domains in real time, define the new standard that lessons must not be embedded into how we train, how we equip, and how we fight. Now, as someone who has spent a lifetime in aviation, let me offer a metaphor that I think cuts to the heart of the multi-domain operations which are demanded of us. In an older generator fighter aircraft, the pilot is the integrator. Radar inputs, electronic warfare warnings, radio transmissions, and visual cues all arrive separately. The pilot must stitch them together mentally, under pressure, in quick time. It works, but it is cognitively demanding, slow, painful, and at times error-prone. In a 5th generation platform, sensor fusion architecture does much of that work. It curates information, filters noise, presents the pilot with a single coherent picture. The result is not incremental, it is transformational. The pilot makes better decisions faster. The aircraft's lethality multiplies not because it carries more weapons, but because its architecture compresses the time between seeing and taking an action. Multi-domain operations are exactly that, but at the topmost level. It is the deliberate integration of our capabilities, information flows, and command authorities so that the Indian Defence Forces can generate decision superiority across all domains simultaneously. Not because we have the most platforms, but because we have the best architecture. Now let us be honest with ourselves about what multi-domain operations is not. It is not cosmetic jointness, 3 services talking to each other at conferences and meetings, but planning separately. It is not about adding a cyber usage annex to a service-specific plan. It is not about buying advanced platforms without thinking how they connect to each other. True MDO is architectural. It requires force structures, command relationships, data standards, training pathways, and industrial ecosystems be built for interoperability from the very start. It is about thinking in terms of systems rather than platforms, effects rather than service equities, and speed of decision rather than tradition. In short, MDO is not about what we own, it is about what we can do together faster than the adversary. Now, India's environment makes this transformation urgent, not aspirational. We face threats that do not respect domain boundaries. Along our northern borders, surveillance drones, satellite monitoring, electronic warfare, and rapid force mobilization coexist in a state of permanent readiness. In the maritime domain, sea lines of communication intersect with space-based surveillance, undersea competition, and carrier-based power projection. On western borders, the threat is evolving with each passing day. Hybrid threats, misinformation campaigns, cyber intrusions targeting power grids, drone swarms over sensitive installations deliberately blur the line between peace and conflict. These threats cannot be addressed by one service. They cannot be addressed sequentially. They must be addressed simultaneously across domains in a synchronized, coordinated response. The ongoing Middle East conflict is a sharp reminder that sea lane disruption, energy supply shocks, and regional instability can affect India's interests without a single adversary targeting us directly. Preparedness must be multi-domain from the outset. That is why MDO is not a future option, it is a present imperative. At the heart of MDO is only one objective: decision superiority. Not more data, but better decisions and faster. See, information overload is also as dangerous as information scarcity. Commanders drowning in unfiltered data are slow and paralyzed. Our challenge is data orchestration, ensuring that the right information reaches the right decision maker at the right moment across every service, across every domain. Ukraine demonstrated this vividly. Decentralized units equipped with real-time intelligence and digital targeting tools were able to exploit opportunities instantly. Units that compress the sensor-to-shooter loop imposed disproportionate costs on adversaries. Rapid hierarchies with broken communication caused delays and disaster. For us, this means mission command must become real. Delegated authority operating with clearly articulated strategic intent, supported by secure and resilient communications. Distributed decision-making with preserved coherence. This is why 2026 has been designated Year of Networking and Data Centricity by Indian Army. It builds directly on 2025's Year of Reforms, which delivered our first formal MDO doctrine, established the Defense, Cyber and Space doctrines, pushed joint training through frameworks of joint services training institutions, and enhancement of training curriculum in tri-service institutes. The direction is set. Now we have to accelerate. Capability convergence must drive how we design our forces. 3 principles matter the most. First, we should have interoperable kill chains. A target detected by one service must be prosecutable by another without friction, without losing time. Sensor and shooter must be able to speak to each other seamlessly, regardless of which uniform they wear. Second is resilience. In an era of long-range precision targeting and persistent surveillance, concentrated assets are exposed assets. Distributed operations, mobility, deception, and redundancy must be built in R4 design from the ground up. Third is technological sovereignty. Atmanirbharta in defense is not just about making weapons in India. It is about controlling architectures, software, encryption, data standards, and upgrade cycles. Without that control, we are dependent on others at the worst possible moments. The record defense exports of nearly 24,000 crores in last year and BrahMos missile surveying with friendly countries tells us that Indian capability is recognized globally. We must build on that confidence at home. The proliferation of drone technology across modern battlefield deserves special mention. From Eastern Europe to West Asia, relatively low-cost unmanned systems, when integrated effectively, have changed the calculus of conflict. Answer is not reactive procurement, it is architectural integration, layered air and missile defense, manned-unmanned teaming, and electronic warfare resilience baked into our force design. Now, a few words about human dimension, doctrine, training, culture, which are most important. Because platform and networks alone will not win future wars. People will. The future officer must be what we are beginning to call a hybrid warrior. He should be deeply grounded in domain expertise, but fluent in cross-domain effects. He or she must understand how a cyber operation can degrade an air defense network, how space-based ISR shapes maritime maneuver, and how an information narrative can shift escalation dynamics before a single round is fired. And we must go further than the defense forces. Cyber attacks target civilian power grids. Disinformation campaigns influence public morale. Space assets underpin navigation systems by both military and civilian users. A genuine multi-domain response must integrate intelligence agencies, space organizations, industry, law enforcement, and academia into our planning architecture. Crisis coordination cannot be improvised, it must be pre-designed. Our move towards joint structures in theater commands, with planning now having reached more than 90%, is a historic opportunity. But let us be clear, structures alone do not guarantee synergy. Cultural integration is what makes structure come alive. Jointness must evolve from mere coordination to genuine unity of effort. That requires transparency of information sharing, clarity of authority, and most fundamentally, mutual trust. Technology connects systems, trust connects people, and it should be built among all stakeholders. Air power occupies a distinctive position in the multi-domain matrix as it is the glue that holds it together. Its speed, flexibility, reach, and precision enable rapid effects across depth. But the fighter cockpit of the future is not a lone platform. It is a node in a network. Its effectiveness depends on shared data, integrated training, integrated targeting, and resilient communications. What is true of air power is true of every service. Each member must see itself not as an independent actor, but as a component of a national combat architecture. How do we know we are getting there? This is the next question which we need to answer. We should measure our progress not by the number of platforms we procure or doctrine documents we publish, but by effects we collectively generate, which will matter operationally. How quickly can we fuse multi-source data into a coherent operational picture? How fast does that picture translate into executable orders? How resilient are our networks under cyber or electronic attack? And how well can targeted systems be reconstituted in the field? Ultimately, multi-domain operations will be a cultural transformation, not just a technical one. It demands intellectual humility to question legacy approaches and institutional courage to implement reform. In high-performance test flying, which I was part of, we have an expression, operating at the edge of the envelope. It means pushing the aircraft limits deliberately, carefully, with rigorous preparation and disciplined confidence. You do not go there recklessly. You go there because the mission demands it, and because you have done the homework and you are ready. India stands exactly at such a moment. The strategic environment around us will not wait. The convergence of domain, the proliferation of disruptive technologies, the persistence of irregular threats, all of them compel us to build an integrated force capable of deterring credibly and responding decisively across the full spectrum of conflict. This edition of Run Samwad is more than a seminar. It is a forum for rigorous debate and candid assessment. Let us use it to challenge assumptions, refine doctrine, and align technology with strategy. Let us ensure that India's approach to multi-domain operations is distinctly Indian, rooted in our operation realities, informed by the lessons unfolding around us, and guided by strategic prudence. Over the next 2 days, 4 sessions will bring together practitioners and thinkers, serving and retired, uniformed and civilian. CDS, service chief, and senior military officers will share their perspective and place these discussions in the broader national context. We also have the 6 selected papers being presented by their authors. The program is curated to give equal weight to theory and practice, because neither alone is enough. The world around us has changed more than anyone imagined, in ways both wonderful and terrible, often in ways no one anticipated. The sheer profundity of change in the past guarantees that change will continue. Now, standing still is not an option, but participating in directing change is the best way ahead. The men and women of our defense forces deserve structures, doctrines, and technologies that match their professionalism and courage. Our nation expects nothing less, and I am confident that this forum will move us closer to delivering exactly that. I wish the seminar all the success, and now let's get started. Thanks very much for patience listening, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. The requirement for multi-domain operation needs to be driven by a strategy of deep convergence, where capabilities across all domains are synchronized to create simultaneous compounding dilemmas for an opponent. In order to lay its foundation, we'll commence the first session titled MDO Evolution, Requirements and Options. May I now request Air Marshal Tejinder Singh, Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Vayu Sena Medal, Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Southwestern Air Command, to chair the session. The Air Marshal has held key staff and command appointments, including ACS Ops Offensive and ACS Ops Strategy, Senior Air Staff Officer at Headquarters Eastern Air Command, Deputy Chief of the Air Staff, and Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Training Command. May I now call upon the panelists for the first session. The first panelist is Vice Admiral Sameer Saxena, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Nausena Medal, Flag Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Southern Naval Command. The Admiral has held key staff and operational appointments afloat and ashore. These include Naval Advisor to High Commission of India in London, Assistant Chief of the Naval Staff, Policy and Plans, Flag Officer Commanding Western Fleet, Flag Officer Commanding Gujarat Naval Area, and Chief of Staff, Eastern Naval Command. The next panelist is Lieutenant General Devendra Sharma, Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Sena Medal, General Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Army Training Command. The General Officer has held important staff and command appointments, which include Brigadier General Staff Operations of a Strike Corps, Major General Staff Operations, and later Chief of Staff, Headquarters, Western Command. May I now request the Chair to take over the proceedings.
Chief of Defence Staff, Chief of Army Staff, former chiefs, all other senior officers, dignitaries and attendees. Firstly, I would like to thank Headquarters IDS for planning the seminar and of course to Training Command for conducting it. Before I start, this particular session will expand on what has been said by the previous speakers, especially the CISC, and with the purpose to get some doctrinal clarity on the subject of MDO on 3 particular aspects, and most of these topics will be discussed later in detail by the individual speakers. Before I start with my talk, I first got a chance, or rather I was detailed to speak on MDO in 2023. And after the talk, a large number of people who attended thought it is just new jargon. It is just, which has entered the lexicon. It is one veteran, General Khandare, he told me, please write it into a paper. And today, when we are having a dedicated seminar on MDO, I feel extremely happy that I put the money on the right horse. I wish I had done that in the stock market. So without further ado, I'll start with my talk. Much of it has been covered, but I'll try to deconflict and add something new in my talk. The scope of my presentation is flashed on the screen. Just take a little detailed look at the contemporary battle space. And a lot of MDO has been covered. I'll try to trace the evolution of MDO in these by NATO, USA, Russia, and China. It will help us relate with the topic better and where we are. I'll also touch upon certain transformations that these countries undertook while they formalized or matured their concept of MDO. I'll take a quick look at some recent operations, essentially a little bit of Ukraine and Venezuela, and I'll leave the ongoing epic fury to General Sharma, who is going to cover it in greater detail. And a quick look at prospects for India. Much of that has already been covered by the CISC. So this is one diagram which you are seeing very often. It is there in our joint, in our multi-domain operations doctrine itself. We have the traditional domains and information domain and the emerging domains. I will come to this diagram or the sketch again a little later, but quickly I'll have a look at domain. If you were to define it, now domain is a macro maneuver space whose control is vital to freedom of action and superiority required by the mission. This is a warfighter's general principle. It is an area that one must have access into and make effects. And this arena does not have to be physical. This is essentially the driver for an MDO concept, that this arena need not be physical. A quick look at the space missions. Space control, we used to call about air superiority, air control. The same concept can be extended now to space control, both in the defensive and offensive counter space operations. Also, space power or space capability enhances conventional operations. We have for missile launch warning, communications, network-centric operations, PNT, ISR, ELINT, including oceanic surveillance, meteorology, situational control, situational awareness, command and control. And the developing space force application through space, in space, and from space. These topics, I'm sure, are being covered in greater detail by the authors who have written papers on the same. Coming to cyber, cognitive warfare has acquired much more teeth through the digital system, digital deception, deepfakes, influence ops, psyops. The previous speakers have touched upon them, and we keep seeing them in the ongoing operations as well. Decision inhibition, degrading the integrity of data. The Delta system of Ukraine was compromised, that they lost confidence in what to believe and what not to believe. Hybrid destabilization, wherein state-sponsored hacktivists, including Iran, carried out successful operations using Telegram and other social media. Kinetic synchronization, which is combining cyber and kinetic attacks, which we saw in off Venezuela, and of course, the ongoing Epic Fury. So now we come back to this same diagram. So here you have operations in the traditional domains, and you have a lot of missions, similar or if not more, which are taking place in the other emerging domains, with the information domain overlapping both traditional and non-traditional domains. Therefore, all operations are multiple domains. Operations take place in every way, and cross-domain maneuvers is the given. With this kind of number of missions, number of options, to manage them with a conventional wisdom of war fighting or planning, it is practically impossible. The number of options that are available in kinetic and non-kinetic domain have increased manifold, and they are being further accelerated with the advent of technological developments like quantum, etc. Therefore, there is a need to have a new way of fighting, a great new concept of operations. That is why the need for multi-domain operation. This aspect was, I think, very nicely covered by the CISC also. Therefore, what is required is to gain information superiority through joint integrated ISR and networks, have decision dominance through compressing the OODA loop and having a multi-domain command, control, and communication network, and be able to apply kinetic and non-kinetic operations jointly with seamless feedback and recurrence. So the key attributes are information superiority, or the key objectives are information superiority and decision dominance, and attributes being cross-domain application, synergy, and tempo. The NATO defines MDO as orchestration of military activities across all domains and environments, synchronized with non-military activity, this point was also covered, to enable the alliance to create converging effects, as was covered, and most importantly, at the speed of relevance. The American Defense Strategy 22, the first of the 4 priorities are defending the homeland faced to the growing multi-domain threat posed by the People's Republic of China. This sentence could well be a part of India's strategy as well. The same adversaries with multi-domain capabilities which have evolved manifold since 2022. It acknowledges also the fact that the Americans place PRC as the top threat, higher than Russia. And this is a common adversary that we have. Their CONOPS can be compressed into a definition of joint force achieves competitive advantage over a near peer adversary. This is one place where there is often a debate. While you may create asymmetry in a particular domain, but in the context in which we are talking, it is very important to have parity with your adversaries. In our context especially, you can't just bank on cyber and space and not have the kinetic wherewithal to be able to contest. But the requirement is to create multiple complementary threats that compel the adversary to do a response and create for him multiple dilemmas. So multiple dilemmas and near-peer adversary, I think, are some words which we could discuss later as well. Russia, it had the Premikov doctrine, which was further refined by Gerasimov, who was a defense minister, doctrine, which they call new generation warfare. It talks of, emphasizes on whole of government warfare, fusion of hard and soft power, a point which CNC Training Command also made quite lucidly, and various domains, blurring the boundary between peace and war. That means the war is not when the bugle goes or there's an announcement. Actually speaking, we are in a state of war all the time. In fact, the Americans have coined the word contestation. That means it's an ongoing struggle at all times with their adversaries. The escalation takes place into war, but the contestation is always on, and this happens in multi-domains. Information is recognized as a domain in addition to the conventional domains, and Russians have given an empirical parameter, whereas kinetic action to non-kinetic will be in a ratio of 1:4, and non-kinetic will precede. This is what their doctrine says, and more or less, if you look at the way they operate, they follow this. Somebody needs to help me, it's not changing. Okay. China's development, I'll take a little more time on 3 prongs of doctrine, CONOPS, and capability. From 1989 onwards, I'll take you to the last bullet of capability development. In the year 2000, PLA Air Force did not have an air superiority fighter. Indian Air Force had 3. The Mirage 2000, the MiG-29, and the Su-30. But through a plan of action, if you go to the situation now, they are in the race for making the first 6th generation fighter, as well as the stealth bomber. So, the doctrinal evolution of concepts has to be backed with capability development. When it comes to space, cyber, and information, they have developed as fast and perhaps faster than the Western world. I will touch upon what all key transformations that have taken place. A lot of has been covered. Data fusion AI to compress the sensor shooter loops in the case of USA. The United States is working on a joint all-domain command and control system as a backbone. In addition to their existing network, the US Congress has earmarked, I think, $1.7 billion or something, I may be wrong on the figure, and made US Air Force as the lead agency to create this backbone for multi-domain operations. And of course, this point was made repeatedly by the CNC Training Command, emphasis on simulation, wargaming, and training. Since there are so many options, both in the kinetic, non-kinetic domain, involving same services operating in both 3 domains or multiple domains, it is physically impossible, like the example of the pilot given by the CISC also, to be able to do so manually in a conventional way in which you do wargaming or do our live exercises. Therefore, AI-based virtual or computer simulation is absolutely essential. The United States, I'm talking of around 10-15 years ago, had a chance to take part in a war game. First, run their plan on a simulator, tweak it, run it again, and only then they are satisfied that they authorize the mission. So we have to definitely evolve into this regimen and do so in a very fast rate. China, platform-centric to system of system operations. This point has been covered. They have reorganized their strategic support force, having a separate information. This has happened 2-3 times. Now this is the latest one in August 2025, I think. A separate verticals of information support, cyber force, aerospace, this is the space part of it, and the joint logistics support force. This, of course, is indicative, I think, of their expeditionary ambitions. Once again, simulation and wargaming. I put the bullet training separately for China. In China, all exercises are joint exercises. There is no single service exercise. All training courses, colonel and above, are joint courses. There is no single service course. So this is a lesson to learn, perhaps, or think about. MDO for Russia, much is not known. They, of course, they have similar capabilities. Aerospace force, this is a combined force with the Air Force. The cyber organization they have, we have read about these in various spy thrillers, etc., the GRU, the FSB, and the SVR. They have now gained cyber capabilities and carry out this thing. They have a dedicated information troops of Russia organization which is embedded, controlled by the MOD. Once again, there is an equal impetus and importance given to simulation, wargaming, and training. Recent operations, Russia, cognitive domain, targeting of targets and communications to cripple the morale. All kinetic attacks were preceded by cyber attacks to create greater confusion. The Viasat attack of February 22, which we are all well aware, disrupted broadband. Of course, this led to Starlink, of course, but it led to phenomenal success on the land by the Russian. However, it's also brought to fore collateral, cyber collateral. This attack impacted Germany's wind tunnels, 5,800 wind turbines, sorry, and put them out of service. On the Ukrainian side, the drone attack at Russian air bases in depth is a classic example of multi-domain operation with conventional, smuggling or spying, followed by assembling of drones and attacks inside. The attack on Russian troops by their mobile signature is very famous on the New Year's Eve of 2023. And in the initial part of the war, they used legacy artillery, which was guided by COTS drones. In Absolute Resolve, which is the Venezuela operation, in the cyber domain, we had a strategic blackout, nationwide power outage in Venezuela, Anthropic Claude, AI-enabled targeting. Essentially, with all the sensor inputs, this AI application was able to create targeting options of more than 1,000 in quick time, which otherwise would have perhaps taken months. They also identified the latency in command and control so that they could exploit it. Cognitive domain, I'll just rush through. I'll come to cognitive plus EW. Here they use something perhaps discombobulator, which is a non-lethal pulse energy weapon against personnel and equipment. This was used when the final assault to capture the head of state was carried out to create confusion, as a result of which this operation took place with minimal casualties. And of course, space was well integrated, as was the maritime domain. Prospects for India. We have, actually speaking, while we are generally self-critical, we have making good progress. We have capabilities in all domains. Some may argue that they are not good enough or they need to develop faster. But we have in all domains. I'll not get into the details of it. Good thing is we have the joint MDO doctrine, which was issued by headquarter IDS last year. And our CONOPS is under evolution, Run Samwad being one of the platforms to have a meeting of minds to get some conceptual clarity. And thereafter, the plan of action, which the CISCs laid out for the next 2 years in a 6-monthly fashion, I think we are on the right track. Yes, we have to perhaps take ownership of this concept and put our mind to it in right earnest. Challenges: generating a common all-domain picture and a joint all-domain command and control. A whole-of-government approach, we have the next speaker speaking about it. Integrating the cyber and space components with a joint force. This is still work in progress. And I think at the intellectual level, at the soldier level, we have to address the incompatibilities in technology, timing and thinking amongst all domains. Time means different, is viewed differently by different services, by different components. Timing, once again. So this is one aspect. When we have the next speaker, General Sharma is going to talk about our part. He will delve into this and throw some more light on how this can be nuanced for multi-domain operations. Training, 3-dimensional thinking and technical orientation, improved understanding of air, cyber and space. These 2 points were made by CNC Training Command and CISC as well. Network-centric operations. Now, network-centric operations are not just for war fighting. Network-centric operations have to become the normal for peacetime functioning as well. Training for MDO, this point I've already elaborated. We need to go in for high-end combat simulator and step up the joint training. To conclude, MDO is the new normal. It is mandatory to imbibe. We don't have a choice. Our adversaries will use it against us. We have to have this multi-domain capabilities. We need to enhance our capability in all domains. To bank on just cyber and space capability against another adversary would perhaps not meet the requirement. We need to upgrade our equipment profiles and force structures to align with the requirements of MDO. This topic is being covered tomorrow. We have to harness our non-traditional domain op capability, both conceptually and doctrinally, as well as have methods in place to do that. That is, better integration of the defense, cyber and space agencies into our operational gambit. Information superiority through seamless integration, this aspect is being covered tomorrow. And of course, finally, to have the decision dominance so that we can create effects as well as multiple dilemmas for the adversary. With this, I have finished, and we'll go on to the next speaker.
General Anil Chauhan, Chief of Defence Staff, General Upendra Dwivedi, Chief of the Army Staff, Air Chief Marshal Homi Major and Admiral Karambir Singh, former Chiefs of the Air and Naval Staffs, Service Commanders and Chiefs, General Officers, Flag Officers, Air Officers, Officers, distinguished veterans, friends from our friendly foreign country, members of media and academia, ladies and gentlemen. It is my belief that here at the Ran Samwad, we must occupy ourselves with one central question. What truly determines success in war? And I believe that Clausewitz gave us the answer that has survived 2 centuries of technological revolution, geopolitical upheaval, and strategic transformation. The Clausewitzian triangle, with its 3 corners, the government, which provides policy and the political will to fight, the military, which provides options that are aligned with that policy and dwell upon chance and creativity, and the people. Clausewitz said that the people provide the will to fight, the hatred for the enemy. And to this, in today's context, I would say that the people provide the technological capability, the industrial capacity, and the economic resilience. War loses coherence the minute one of these elements, the government, the people, or the armed forces, fall out of alignment with the others. This is not a Prussian insight. Our own Indian insights were articulated thousands of years before Clausewitz was born. In 300 BC, Chanakya in the Arthashastra has emphasized the range of kinetic and non-kinetic strategies, including psychological manipulation, intelligence, deception, diplomacy, economic strangulation of the enemy, besides the obvious use of force. Further, going thousands of years earlier, in the Mahabharata, Lord Krishna understood that the decisive domain was not Kurukshetra's battlefields or arrows. It was not the politics of Hastinapur. It was in the mind of Arjun, the cognitive domain. Only by influencing that domain could he enable Arjun to act decisively, to fight, and particularly to defeat Bhishma, the center of gravity of the Kaurava army. It is every generation's curse to relearn everything that was known in the age of the Mahabharata. Today's joint multi-domain operation doctrine has now formally been written, and this identifies cognitive domain not as a supporting domain, as the decisive domain. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be direct about something that is often missing from our internal strategic discourse. Either we spend energy assuring ourselves that we are on target, or we spend considerable intellectual energy, rightly so, cataloging our gaps and vulnerabilities. But a strategist who can catalog only weaknesses produces paralysis, not strategy. So before we honestly speak about the work that lies ahead to be done, let us first take stock of the formidable foundational strengths that we already possess. We are a battle-hardened force. Galwan, 2020, where our soldiers fought hand-to-hand at 17,000 feet, demonstrated institutional and national resolve. More recently, Operation Sindoor, where we demonstrated the will, the capability, and the strategic sophistication to conduct genuine multi-domain operations under live combat conditions, notwithstanding the nuclear overhang. We executed simultaneous precision strikes across domains with the Navy postured to deter escalation without engagement. Our missile systems, our air defense systems proved to be effective in real combat situations. Next, the doctrinal enhancement. With the release of the Joint Doctrine on Multi-Domain Operations last year, we have now formally codified 6-domain framework: land, sea, air, space, cyber, and cognitive, as the operating environment for all future conflicts. The doctrine explicitly established the cognitive domain as a co-equal to the physical domains, and it mandates a common all-domain operational picture, and also frames our response not as a military exercise but a whole-of-nation approach. Beyond doctrine and operations, India also possesses structural advantages that are unique amongst powers. Our strategic autonomy has given us access to technology ecosystems that no other nation commands simultaneously. Russian S-400, BrahMos missiles, the American MQ-9B, the C-17s, the French Rafales, the Israeli drones, precision munitions. We operate the most diverse defense technology portfolio in a multi-domain conflict, and this provides optionalities. Simultaneously, we are committed to become a totally Atmanirbhar Bharat by 2047, and that, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, is just 21 years away. Our geography sets us astride the world's most critical maritime choke points, and the Indian Navy can exert a strategic influence. Our geography is a gift from God. Our geopolitics is a reflection and a resultant of our policies. Our missile systems, the BrahMos, Agni, Pralay, Astra, credible, survivable, multi-platform. The BrahMos alone can be launched from sea, land, air, not to mention our SSBNs, which create a decision dilemma across domains. Our digital public infrastructure, Aadhaar, UPI, DigiLocker, are the most sophisticated, population-sized digital systems in the world. Our IT sector, our IITs, and other such institutions that provide over 1 million engineering graduates every year, and Indian talent that is fueling the global AI research, OpenAI at Microsoft. These are our asymmetric advantages that will define the next century of warfare. And perhaps most profound of all, our democratic character. When India represents its strategic narrative to the world, it speaks from a platform of democratic legitimacy that authoritarian adversaries cannot replicate. Our independent press, our functioning courts, our civil society, they create an international credibility that is a cognitive warfare asset of incalculable value. Whatever the counter narrative, we have to believe in our national motto, Satyamev Jayate. The challenges we have. Now I must also honestly speak about the challenges, as misrepresenting our own readiness to ourselves is the most dangerous form of cognitive warfare. Operation Sindoor taught us something sobering about the cognitive domain. By some accounts, 15% of our operational tempo was consumed fighting disinformation. Deep fakes of our Prime Minister circulated in real time. Chinese bot networks that generated 10 million impressions of hashtag Indian false flag within 72 hours. Pakistan's information campaign, while crude, found purchase because we had no standing cognitive warfare architecture to counter it at speed. We won the kinetic battle. We could have equally done well in the narrative of the battle. In wars today, our adversaries are conducting cognitive operations continuously, not just when the moment of conflict begins. This is a distinction we need to recognize. This is an existential challenge for a diverse democracy, multicultural, multi-religion, multilinguistic society that we are. The C4ISR industrial gap, the C4ISR information infrastructure, which will be the nerve center of the multi-domain operations, remains fragmented, non-interoperable, and in places obsolete. We have no common all-domain operational picture of our operational deployments. The three services are operating on different communication systems, different data formats, different encryption standards that are not natively communicating with each other. Our defense industrial base, while growing, is structurally constrained for prolonged production cycles. the public sector dominance, a budget in which finance may be adequate, but there is no ownership for the money. This is a stark danger. So I must now address the obvious question that truly matters. And the question is, what do we have to do to build a whole-of-nation architecture for multi-domain operations? And I offer 9 recommendations that are structured around the people, the government, and the military. For the people, I would say, need to establish a national cognitive resilience mission under perhaps the National Security Council with 3 interlocking mandates: the Standing Counter Disinformation Rapid Response Architecture, a national media literacy program scaled to create 1 billion citizen warriors, an array of cyber and cognitive warriors, and a cognitive warfare research center. My second recommendation to the people would be to activate the startup defense ecosystem to scale. India's IDEX initiative has demonstrated a proof of concept, but the proof of concept is not to scale. We must move from a program of hundreds of participants to ecosystems of thousands. I recommend dedicated MDO innovation challenges in 6 specific capability areas: autonomous systems, AI-enabled sensor fusion, cyber offensive tools, cognitive warfare platforms, space-based ISR, and electronic warfare. These challenges should come with a 3-year funded development cycle, not grants, not contracts, but developmental cycles with well-defined deliverables. My third recommendation would be for the creation of a National Defense Technology Reserve. India produces over 1 million engineering graduates annually. A fraction of those with appropriate security clearances should constitute a National Defense Technology Reserve, structured much like our territorial army, in which AI engineers, cyber professionals, data scientists, and cognitive domain specialists can serve the nation in their professional capacity during crisis. The talent exists in India. We need the institutional architecture to access it. My final recommendation to the people would be to build a defense industrial surge capacity. The lessons from Ukraine are not about, and also the lessons from the ongoing conflict between the United States and Iran is not about tactics. It is about the ability to sustain attrition. We cannot allow this industrial base to wither in peacetime. That would be the equivalent of that era in reverse. So I recommend mandatory audit of Tier 1 and Tier 2 defense suppliers that can assure us that they have the capacity to surge ammunition stocks, drone production lines, precision munition manufacturing, not in peacetime, but for at least 90 days of high-intensity conflict. Also, I would like to emphasize simplicity as a principle of war. While we support our defense industry partners with our collective vision for Atmanirbhar Bharat, they cannot hold us hostage to obsolescence management. For the government, very respectfully, I would submit 2 suggestions. Firstly, to establish a national multi-domain operations coordination council. A whole-of-nation approach cannot be coordinated through existing interministerial processes designed for peacetime governance. We need a multi-domain operations coordination council, perhaps chaired by the National Security Advisor or the Honorable Minister of Defense, with permanent memberships from the Ministries of Defense, External Affairs, Finance, Information Technology, Space, Science and Technology, as also, of course, the CDS and 3 service chiefs, the heads of the ISRO, DRDO, and NIC. The Council should meet periodically at peacetime, daily in a crisis, to ensure that every element of national power is aligned with the military's operational requirements across all 6 domains. The other suggestion to the government would be for a legislative framework for cyber and cognitive operations. Our democratic character is our greatest cognitive warfare asset, and also our greatest vulnerability. If we conduct operations without legal architecture, that would be a vulnerability. We need a Cyber and Information Operations Act that allows the CDS and the Cyber Command with clear authority, clear limits, and clear accountability. Without this, we will either be paralyzed in peacetime, or we will act in ways that undermine our democratic and pluralistic legitimacy, which is our strategic differentiator. To the military, my 3 recommendations: operationalize theater commands. The debate must end. No initial organization will be perfect, neither are service headquarters nor HQIDS. All of them have morphed over time. What I'm suggesting is a decision, deadline, delivery mechanism. China stood up theater commands in 24 months. We have been debating this for 24 years. And the IF's concerns about asset legitimacy, asset scarcity are completely legitimate. They should be resolved within the theater command structure and not as an argument against it. My next recommendation would be to establish a cognitive warfare command, and it should be a tri-service command with civilian specialists embedded. It should have a mandate to cover 4 functions: offensive cognitive operations against adversary decision makers and population, defensive cognitive, resilience for our own armed forces and strategic leadership, strategic communication and narrative management in crisis and conflict, and an intelligence analysis of the adversary's cognitive campaigns in peacetime. This command should work with a permanent peacetime collaboration with IITs and AI and social media analysts, and with the MEA giving the international narrative. Finally, the need for a common all-domain operational picture. This is mandated in the doctrine, and therefore I recommend a dedicated team to be nominated to oversee and define operational standards required to have a common operational picture. Ladies and gentlemen, let us return to where we began. As I highlighted earlier, war is a continuation of policy, but more profoundly, it is an act of human will. The size that sustains its will aligns its people, government, and military, that fights across every domain, political, economic, technology, psychological, and kinetic, will prevail. India in 2026 has such a moment of clarity. We have a doctrine that recognizes all 6 domains. In Operation Sindoor, we have demonstrated our ability to integrate them under fire. Our democratic legitimacy, strategic autonomy, geography, technological talent, and combat experience form a foundation that few can match. Yet, our most critical gap is cognitive. India's adversaries have already concluded that the decisive domain in any conflict with India is not the Himalayan heights or the Arabian Sea. It is the 1.1 billion screens in Indian hands and the narrative that flows through them. The decisive battle space is not only airspace, ground terrain, or sea. It is the narrative through those billion screens. The whole of nation approach is therefore not a metaphor. It is an operational necessity. The government, the people, and the military must act in alignment. We have the doctrine, we have the talent, we have the will. We must act together and now. Thank you. Shanavarna. Jai Hind.
Thank you. General Sharma.
General Anil Chauhan, Chief of Defence Staff, General Upendra Dwivedi, Chief of the Army Staff, former service chiefs, our respected veterans, friends from friendly foreign countries, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a matter of honor and a unique privilege for me to address this august gathering at the 2nd edition of SAMWAD on the strategic issue of reimagining operational art in the context of multi-domain operations. Operational art has long occupied critical space in military thought. It can be defined as the employment of military forces to attain strategic goals in a theater of war through the design, organization, and conduct of campaigns and major operations. Operational art serves as a bridge between strategy and tactics. Strategy defines what has to be achieved. Tactics defines how battles are fought. Operational art connects the two by deciding where, when, and in what sequence to give battle. The quintessential ingredients of operational art are the desired end state, centers of gravity, decisive points that address centers of gravity, lines of effort leading to the culmination point of the enemy. A regressive planning cycle encompassing sequencing, phasing, and tempo provides a campaign design, which is the very essence of operational art. In today's multi-domain operations environment that encompasses not only land, air, and maritime domains, but also other domains such as space, near space, cyber, electronic, cognitive, information, and economic warfare, the application of operational art needs a very different and a nuanced approach. I shall cover my talk in two parts. First, I shall elaborate on the 21st century battlefield while qualifying it with a recent example. In the second part, I'll elaborate on the nuanced approach towards application of operational art in the 21st century. The modern-day battlefield has been transformed by the advent of niche and disruptive technologies. The new military architecture consists of cheap autonomous systems, AI-assisted targeting, commercial satellite imagery, resilient communications, integrated sensors, and cyber tools, all operating together as a whole. The side that wins tomorrow's wars will not be the one with the single best platform. It may be the one that can field enough platforms quickly enough and network them intelligently enough. The problem is no longer of technological sophistication. It is of industrial scale, software integration, and the speed with which lessons from the battlefield are turned into mass production. While persistent ISR, cyber, and cognitive warfare are omnipresent drones, a soldier will not get respite any time on the battlefield. And what better way to visualize this battlefield than through the prism of an ongoing conflict, Operation Epic Fury. Operation Epic Fury, the ongoing US-Israel joint campaign against Iran, is a defining case study of multi-domain operations in the 21st century. The operation unfolded in three distinct yet overlapping phases. A shaping phase through cyber and space disruption that blinded, paralyzed, and isolated the Iranian forces before a single kinetic weapon was released. A shock phase through simultaneous massive air, missile, drone strikes that delivered decisive effects across strategic depth. And a sustaining phase through continuous high-tempo strikes on missile sites, command control nodes, critical military assets, nuclear facilities, logistic installations, and civilian infrastructure. Allow me to dilate now on certain specific domains that were operationalized during Epic Fury. Space was the foundational enabler, active before the first weapon was released, sustaining every phase through the conflict. Keyhole, Planet Labs, Maxar Worldview satellites provided detection, identification, target tracking, and battle damage assessment. GPS Block 3 satellites transmitting the jam-resistant M-code military signal guided precision munitions to 3 meters accuracy. Operation Epic Fury was perhaps the most cyber-intensive military operation in history. Cyber was the opening act, executed well before the first bomb fell, creating conditions for every kinetic domain to follow. Cyber operations were used for suppression of enemy air defenses, internet blackout, and power grid pulsing. US cyber operations injected false radar signals to create ghost targets, hijacked IFF codes, and introduced malwares to lock out missile batteries. Iran's internet connectivity dropped 1 to 4% of normal levels within the first 48 hours, thereby creating a digital cage severing IRGC command communications. Iran's national power grid reportedly collapsed on 5th March 2026 as a result of offensive cyber operations, resulting in a nationwide power blackout. Simultaneous with cyber operations was electronic warfare. E-8, E-18G Growler, and EC-130H Compass Call electronic attack aircraft jammed Iranian radar frequencies, air defense data links, and disrupted command and control communications in order to provide safe corridors for strike air packages. Space-based SIGINT assets geolocated radar emitters in real time, feeding anti-radiation missile targeting systems, while also jamming Iranian military communication satellites. The persistent domain during Epic Fury has been the employment of unmanned aerial vehicles. MQ-9 Reapers and other drones simultaneously conducted persistent ISR to locate Iranian ballistic missile launchers, enabling precision engagements with Hellfire missiles and laser-guided bombs, concurrent battle damage assessment and retargeting within minutes. This helped sustain a fast tempo of operations and preserve costly manned platforms. The US re-engineered version of the Iranian Shahid drone, the low-cost unmanned combat aerial system, also known as the Lucas, saw its first combat use, precisely engaging targets up to 800 kilometers using SpaceX Starshield in a GPS-denied environment. Information warfare in Epic Fury focused on denial of services. Iran's 96% of internet collapse severely disrupted IRGC's command communications. State agencies of IRNA and ISNA were disrupted, eliminating the regime's channels for coordinating a response. Cognitive warfare targeted the Iranian population's perceptions, beliefs, and will to resist. Bade Sabah, a prayer time application used by millions of Iranians, including IRGC personnel, was hacked to push mass notifications urging soldiers to give up weapons and join the people. President Trump's 8-minute video addressed the Iranian people directly before the first strike, delegitimizing IRGC resistance and attempting to shape post-conflict political landscape. We are all aware of the recent US operation to rescue the weapons systems officer of the F-15E aircraft which crashed inside Iran. Within Operation Epic Fury, this rescue operation serves as a live case study of multi-domain operations, wherein air, land, cyber, space, electronic, and information capabilities converge to create a temporary, localized window of superiority for the extraction. Multiple and simultaneous lines of effort, ISR, precision strikes, special forces insertion and deception were synchronized to disrupt Iranian efforts to capture the downed crew member, thereby demonstrating dynamic cross-domain integration and decision superiority. Ladies and gentlemen, Operation Epic Fury illustrates that in the 21st century battle space, no domain stands alone. Space feeds ISR, ISR cues targeting, cyber blind brings the grid down, EW blinds the enemy, AI compresses the kill chain, and precision fires delivers effects across strategic depth. This is the battlefield that operational art must now contend with. It is to the reimagining of that operational art that we now turn to. The 21st century battle space, as illustrated by Operation Epic Fury, is significantly different in character from anything that preceded it. Yet, certain fundamentals of operational art remain unchanged. What has evolved is not the intellectual framework, but the environment in which it's applied, the domains through which it's operationalized, and the speed at which it must be executed. Desired end state, centers of gravity, decisive point, lines of effort, and culmination point remain the 5 immutable pillars of operational art. And Epic Fury was designed and executed precisely around these 5 pillars, as I shall now elucidate. The desired end state of the campaign plan of Operation Epic Fury has not been articulated by the United States. However, extrapolating from statements of President Trump, other political leaders of the United States, and application of combat power, the desired end state envisaged by the United States could have been at 2 levels, the strategic and the tactical level. At the strategic level, the desired end state could have been to permanently disable Iran's nuclear capability, security of US regional interests restored and stabilized, freedom of navigation, Red Sea and Gulf of Oman secured, and regime change to have a pliant regime in Iran. Whereas at the operational level, the desired end state could have been Quds Force and the IRGC loses effective theater-level command control, severely degrade and destroy Iran's military capability. IRGC proxy groups Hezbollah, Houthi, and Iraqi militia are disaggregated. The goalposts of the desired end state may have faded or shifted since the start of the operation. However, each laid down condition served as a design anchor for every target set and every domain that followed. While there are many definitions of the center of gravity, the most acceptable one, in my view, is, I quote, center of gravity is that critical vulnerability, the targeting of which would cause the adversary to capitulate, unquote. A review of operations till date would suggest that the United States has probably identified the following centers of gravity: targeting and decapitation of political and military leadership, network blackout to include C4ISR, AD networks, hardline communications, and power grids, degradation of military capability to include ballistic missile capability, Iranian Air Force, Navy, and critical military infrastructure, and destruction of Iran's nuclear missile program to include nuclear infrastructure, enrichment facilities, stockpiles, and delivery means. By traditional definition, lines of effort are directional paths that connect a military's base of operation through decisive point to the centers of gravity, aligning in force, time, space, and purpose. In multi-domain operational construct, lines of effort are designed to integrate and synchronize effects across domains in order to influence multiple centers of gravity simultaneously. A single, well-conceived line of effort can generate cascading effects across several centers of gravity. Therefore, operational design should overemphasize on the convergence of effects where integrated actions across domains collectively degrade the adversary system as a whole. In Operation Epic Fury, the US Armed Forces appear to be operating along the following 8 lines of effort. Line of effort 1, battlefield transparency, establishing persistent and high-fidelity awareness to achieve information dominance for decision superiority. Line of effort 2, kinetic degradation focused on application of lethal force to induce systemic confusion and loss of command control, leading to capitulation of the enemy. Line of effort 3, network disruption, brought the Iranian grid down, disrupting C4ISR, air defense networks, hardline communications, and power grids. Line of effort 4, maritime security enabled sea control in the Red Sea and Gulf of Oman to control global energy flows. Line of effort 5, partner enablement helped build regional coherence of efforts through multi-domain collaboration with Israel, Iraq, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and NATO partners. Line of effort 6, strategic relevance and signaling, focused on the show of credible and capable force while maintaining escalation dominance through controlled force application and political signaling. Line of effort 7, information cognitive dominance, attempted to undermine the Iranian regime and disaggregate regime proxies. Line of effort A, economic warfare, choked the sustenance capability to harass and break Iran's will to fight. Thus, in multi-domain operation, lines of efforts are not linear, individual, or sequential. They are rather conducted concurrently, simultaneously, and in an overlapping manner across multiple domains. Epic Fury has thus confirmed 2 truths. First, the 5 basic domains of operational art, desired end state, centers of gravity, decision points, lines of effort, and culmination point are not relics of the past. They are the very architecture on which future campaigns will be built. Second, traditional campaign designs rested on linear logic in which phases were distinct and domains were operationally separable. The 21st battle space does not allow such luxuries. The reimagining of campaign design is thus an imperative born out of operational reality. We will thus examine 3 core elements of campaign design: sequencing, phasing, and tempo with a renewed and sharper perspective. Traditional sequencing asks what comes first: air superiority before ground maneuver, fire preparation before the assault, information operations after the kinetic phase. Consider the use of drones by the US in Epic Fury. Multiple drones of varied configurations, payloads carried out ISR, target acquisition, identification and designation, precision strikes, battle damage assessment, electronic warfare, and communications relays simultaneously from the first minute of the operation, and not in any planned sequence, but in convergent and mutually reinforcing swarm. There was no ISR phase followed by a strike phase. Sequencing in a multi-domain campaign is not strictly linear, but logically prioritized, with activities conducted in parallel and mutually reinforcing ways across domains. The traditional phasing models inherited from post-Cold War campaign planning assumed phases were distinct and largely non-overlapping. The shaping phase was assumed to be preliminary activity completed before the decisive operations began. Reimagined phasing of MDO must move to overlapping, adaptive, and condition-based cycle. Phases overlap and recur. Shaping continues through decisive operation. Exploitation begins before culmination. Consolidation runs concurrently with continuing strikes. A campaign design in MDO could possibly have the following 4 phases. Phase 1, shaping. To establish ISR dominance, battlefield transparency, and electronic grid blackout through cyber, EW, cognitive, and information operations, and commence cognitive shaping. Shock and dislocation. Execute coordinated multi-domain operations at scale and pace to induce systemic confusion and loss of command control. Phase 3, exploitation. Leverage degraded adversary systems to expand operational advantage and sustain pressure across domains to accelerate systemic collapse. and phase 4 stabilization and consolidation, transition to a controlled posture by consolidating gains and securing key areas. Tempo is perhaps the most profoundly transformed element of the campaign design of the 21st century battle space. Its mechanism binds sequencing and phasing together by controlling the speed, rhythm, and velocity of operations across domains. The battlefield tempo of the 21st century is enabled by a persistent ISR providing a near-transparent battlefield, grid blackout by ensuring electronic dominance, machine speed decision cycles, lethal and devastating strikes, and revisits based on real-time PSDA. Autonomous systems, network integration, and AI-assisted decision cycles have significantly enhanced tempo of operations. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, my argument can be stated very plainly. The 5 domains of op art, namely desired end state, centers of gravity, decision points, lines of effort, and culmination points, are timeless. What the 21st century battle space demands is reimagining of how multiple domains of warfare are converted into a campaign. Sequencing must shift from linear chains to converging simultaneity. Phasing must shift from sequential stage gates to overlapping adaptive and conditions-based cycles. Tempo must shift from controlled operational rhythm to relentless multi-domain machine speed pressure that is unsustainable by the enemy. My charge, therefore, is that in order to reimagine our op art, we need to internalize new ways of sequencing, phasing, and generating tempo in our campaign design, and to embed them in our doctrine, training, and command culture before the next crisis arrives. The commander who masters this reimagined campaign design will not merely outfight his adversary, he will outthink, outpace, and outlast him. This is operational art of the 21st century, and this is what we must now urgently prepare ourselves for. If we succeed, we will enter the future crisis not as prisoners of the 20th century warfare, but as practitioners of 21st century operational art, worthy of the responsibility of security of our nation that has been entrusted to us. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Jai Hind.
One of the challenges of MDO that we had mentioned was time and timing. So the organizers are very happy that we have managed to overcome this challenge for this session. We have 2 minutes ahead of time, and the house is open to questions. My request is please keep your questions brief and specific. Okay. And if you can introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. I'm Rear Admiral Srikhande. I retired from the Navy. I've been teaching operational art for quite a few years, and there are many in India who do that. I would like to suggest, make 3 short points about operational art itself. Is that we have to think differently about operational art as a framework for thinking and planning that is at all levels of warfare, the military strategic, military operational, and military tactical level of warfare, where some of the tenets may not apply. Rather, the operational level of warfare is the bridge that links the tactical level of warfare to the strategic level of warfare. Its operational art does not link these 2 phases. That is one way I would suggest of thinking. The second part is that rather than call these domains of operational art, they are tenets of operational art is what I would suggest. They are not domains of operational art. And the third thing is perhaps that in PME itself now we need to have much greater emphasis placed on the study of operational art and operational warfare as the bridge that links the tactical to the strategic. It needs a lot more focus and a lot more time to be devoted, which is something for everybody here to consider. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much. I take your observation. These are issues for debate. Perhaps we could debate it on a one-on-one basis. I have given a postulation. You've given another one. I think we can move on to the question answers.
Jain sir, I'm Brigadier P. Sunil Kumar. I'm Commandant Mechanized Infantry Center and School. My question is for General Sharma. So it's, as I understand, it's a given that we have to look differently the way we are organized and the way we do business. So in your opinion, what are the structural adaptations that will be required to operationalize the way we look at MDO now, sir?
Some of it has been alluded to even in the talk, the keynote address of the CISC on the structural alignment. And I think the first thing is, I think we need to, when we are seeing multi-domain operations happening simultaneously, overlapping, concurrently, and at pace, velocity, at a tempo which is really unsustainable to the enemy, the first thing that really stands out is that we need to move from this era of jointness to an era of integration. Now, having said that, there is one fundamental structural realignment that, in my view, is needed, which means in a theater of war, which is against a particular adversary, we need to have unity of command. And that unity of command, perhaps, can come out of having one single commander orchestrating all military-related operations. When I say military, it's all the three services. Operations against that adversary. And this brings me to the precept of theater command. It is an operational necessity in an MDO environment. Apart from that, what Admiral Saxena spoke about, whole of nation approach, whole of state approach. I mean, earlier we had this earlier construct of civil-military cooperation, which actually stems from the 70s, where 72 we had the fuel crisis, 74 the milk crisis, various earthquakes, floods, etc. Well, that remains in place where it is. But there is a new terminology coming in, which is called military-civil cooperation. That means what is it the state can do? What is the academia? What is the industry contribution? What are the academic think tanks? How can they contribute towards enabling the military? And I think that is another facet that really needs to get looked at. So in my opinion, and I think we also need a whole lot of technology coming in through different structures, some of which the Chief of the Army Staff spoke in his Army Day press conference, which he talked of the Indian Army Futures Command. So these are new structures that need to come in to understand MDO, to get a cultural change into MDO, and to have a reimagined OPART to executing a campaign.
Jain sir.
Here, I think General Shivane wants to ask a question.
I'll just take a minute to add, sir.
Jai Hind, I'm Lieutenant General Ashok Shivane. My question pertains to that besides the collaboration and convergence of the 6 domains and also all instruments of national power and civil-military fusion, I think increasingly in 21st century and the recent conflicts, what has come out is the society itself is a domain. And its resilience is a factor of vulnerability or a strength. And towards that extent, my recommendation is, at the national level or the strategic level, we need to have a national citizen security culture, a change in behavior culture which understands national security, defense, and the threats that today are being targeted towards the society. And this is more than narrative warfare, more than cognitive warfare. Thank you.
I think we'll take in the next question, this observation.
Thank you so much, sir. Completely agree. Completely
May I
agree with
ask
your
a
observations, sir. Thank you, sir.
Moisa, I'm General V.K. Goody. I am the ADG SI. My question pertains to the chair, sir. This is being the foundational discussion on the subject. Sir, like the spectrum has been, I feel the electromagnetic spectrum needs to be recognized as a domain. Why I so in our Indian context is it enables us to create capacities and capabilities and also for use the civilian use. We have other ministries and other agencies which are also using the same spectrum. While this was alluded to in the CISC, he mentioned it as a enabler and also as a domain. But as an articulation at the highest level, I think we should recognize electromagnetic spectrum as a domain which is contested and congested.
So I think there is no doubt that electromagnetic spectrum is a very critical domain. Any operation, even physical operation, is highly dependent on effective exploitation and protection of the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, so to my mind, it is already there. If you are talking of in the cyber domain, also it can. Whether you are talking of calling it a separate vertical by itself, it will help. I really don't understand. Structurally, I think we all understand that EW is going to be is a very crucial part of operations. That I think our structures, our equipment profiles cater for that.
Just a moment. Sir, can I just qualify a little more? Goody, to your question. While you're right in what you say, I mean, there's nothing wrong with what you've said, but my own articulation of electronic warfare. Electronic warfare has 4 subparts. First is electronic EMSO. The second is information operations. Third is cyber. And the fourth is psychological. All 4 contribute to electronic, and electronic warfare actually is one of the things that helps in info dominance for decision superiority. So perhaps you're right saying that EM, but my understanding is in electronic warfare, electromagnetic support operations is just one domain of 4 which contributes to electronic warfare. We can debate that later.
But that, so you mean to say we should control, the military should control the entire allocation of spectrum? What? Yeah. Okay, we'll discuss this a little separately. Maybe, yes, sir.
I am Vice Marshal Bahadur. I retired a decade back. Just a question. You know, we issue doctrines and joint doctrine for MDO. It will require colossal amount of funds, colossal. Is the government au fait with this? In the sense, how much of the civil administration or the budget or the Ministry of Finance is agreeing to what the services are saying, we are going to train like this, please give us so much money?
I think our post-structuring, our acquisitions, are catering for all the capabilities. You know, we have the Defense Cyber Agency, we have the Defense Space Agencies, there is a Def Space program, there are enhancements. MDO as a concept is integrating better. There are already progress being made in integration of the service networks, the joint communication architecture. That has been done. The further nuances, I really don't know how much of it is in the public domain. Work is in progress in that. So I think the existing kinetic, non-kinetic capabilities have to be, of course, we have to progress further. We require more. And the plans are afoot. The Vision 2047 has been just laid out. I think it covers everything. So it's not a question of having some separate money allocation for MDO. MDO is concept of exploiting the existing domains and the traditional domains in an effective manner to require incremental and synergies, incremental effects in all domains. So per se, I don't see additional money. Yes, the requirement of having space capability has been recognized by the government. We are going in for space capability for military use. We are enhancing our cyber capability. There are, which have been there, probably the future speakers would throw some light on it, as would the senior leadership also. So per se, I don't foresee additional fund allocation to become MDO. That is my understanding. I just wanted to add, there was a talk about the structural part. There is no doubt that the structure should support the operational concept. But I would draw your attention to what the SISC said. Structures by themselves will not suffice. That is why we are sitting together and thinking. We have to have clarity on concepts. We have to have clarity on doctrines and be able to plan jointly and make plans jointly. A single commander, I would think, in a future war, in past wars, you could have one general who could be credited for winning a war. In an MDO, it will be a collaborative affair, because one person's or part will fall short. It will be highly technologically intense. It will have to be based on algorithms. Yes, the leadership would be critical, but it will not be just a one man, the general deciding the course of war. It will be a collaborative effort, intensely technical in nature. This is my perception.
Sir, I am Major General Abhinay Rai, sir. First question is to the chair, and it is pretty surreal because you were my instructor at FIS to be asking you one here. My question is, sir, that do we require to raise functional units at Air Force, Army and Naval levels, like the US has done by creating the multi-domain task force, or the Chinese have created the information support force, which is ensuring actually communication, which is so critical for MDO, sir. So that is for you, sir. For Admiral Saxena, sir, I just wanted to make a quick point. I think what when you talked about whole of nation approach, sir, what the Americans did by getting the CIA to use ghost murmur to identify where the downed pilot was, or getting the Palantir and Anthropic to work together in Pentagon, is kind of a whole of nation approach which we need to sort out, sir. And last question, sir, to my Army commander, is that you had given the center of gravity, sir, which are so critical for all practitioners or part. Today, sir, we were always relating them to very, very dimensional physical things, which has now changed, sir. So how critical it is to be able to identify them in an MDO concept, sir, the center of gravities. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Abhinav. Always a pleasure to see you and meet you. Personally, having been engaged with right from my AOC J&K days with jointmanship, General Dwivedi is here, I have come to this conclusion that if we start a discussion by making an organization structure, we'll keep debating that only. I think as war fighters, we should focus on capabilities. I'll give you two examples. The debate on theaterization, it's how long it is. The Army's own experiment or decision to go for IBGs, how much time it takes. The fact remains that we have to have cohesion. We have to have all elements coming together so that all capabilities can be synergistically utilized. The structures changes will enable it, but in this case, for MDO per se, technical capability is far more critical, I think. So the key point of having a common network, a common picture, common communication network. Thereafter, AI-based decision-making options. When these are there, the color of the uniform, I think, will not matter so much. We will be able to sit together. Yes, once we have the capability, I'm sure we'll be able to make a unit, like we made a cyber agency, made a space agency, we may be able to make a brigade level unit or a division level unit just for this particular task. But as of now, I think our focus should be on getting the capabilities and getting the doctrinal and conceptual convergence amongst all the three services on the subject, which is very, very important. I think that should be our first priority.
General Abhinav, you started very promisingly that you would target only your instructor, and then I see you've gone very widespread and not spared anybody on the panel. So thank you for that fairness. I think about organizations, I said we should have a joint command headquarters for these multi-domain operations. So that would be my short answer to your question to sir. To the description that you made about how the Americans did it, and technologies, the AI, the surveillance, the stuff that they have. Firstly, I must make 2 points. One is that I am not anti-technology, but I do believe that technology is not the panacea to all our problems. I think the CNC spoke about it, mission command, what the Germans used to call Auftragtaktik, what the French call coup d'oeil. The commander's intuition of the situation will continue for a long time with all this AI, all the AML that you have, and certainly decision making will be faster, data processing will be faster, but technology cannot be the panacea to everything. I ask you the question that with all the technology that the Americans used, what did AI not identify? They used everything, they did everything. What did AI not, and what can AI not do? It cannot replace you because you're a human being who's got empathy, who's got, a certain courage. The AI did not detect the Persian civilizational strength. The AI did not detect the simple rule that the enemy gets to vote. Thank you.
No, thank you. There were a couple of questions actually. Can you hear me now, no? Yeah. There are a couple of questions, but I thought maybe I'll try and answer them, which was actually for the panel. What was about General Goody? That's about electromagnetic spectrum actually. And some kind of an explanation was given, which I thought maybe needed more clarification. If you remember in the last Combined Commander Conference, this was the agenda that will separate out information warfare into, cyber, electromagnetic, as well as perception management as 3. And that now has been decided. So electromagnetic spectrum in its own domain is a kind of a new domain of warfare. We must acknowledge that. Because in all 3, why we separated it out? Because cyber was actually expanding into digital domain. It's expanding hugely, and so was perception management was getting into StatCom and your cognitive domain. So we separated this kind of out, and so what Goody's concern is that we still haven't acknowledged as an armed force that electromagnetic spectrum will be a domain. It will take us some time while we are working towards it. So that will address that particular concern. Jan Shivane's question was something to do with the strategic culture, development of strategic culture, which develops strategic resilience of a society to fight. To some extent, Admiral Sameer Saxena just mentioned the resilience of Iranian society or the Persian society for this. So Jan Shivane is mentioning this, that this itself, the whole society should be considered as a domain which provides the resilience for the nation to fight. In the Iranian case, I don't think 100% of the society, but part of the society they have cultivated, created, and a separate force is created, that revolutionary guards, which are separate from the armed forces. So they have a different zeal to fight, which is slightly different. Will this be required at a national level? That's a thing which is debatable, and how to go about doing it. It will be a huge task. Third thing was about one Air Force officer, your student, I couldn't get his name now, who was talking about the information support force of the Chinese and what are we doing towards creating such kind of structures. I would have covered it at some other point of time, but we are working towards STATCOM agency, which will contain cognitive warfare and which will contain perception management, which is going to come at headquarter IDS. It will coordinate the efforts of all the three services, especially the perception management part, but work independently in the domain of cognitive warfare. We are also in advanced stage of getting a communication agency which look after networks of the three services. We are looking at an expanded cyber and space agency and a geospatial agency. Lastly is this question of AVM Bahadur. He asked about whether when we go for this kind of capability, multi-domain capability, will we require additional budgets or not? If we look at a very futuristic kind of a scenario, while we can say that it's only networking of existing capability which can get us to MDO, that could be one simplest way of looking at things. But I think it will be far more than that. Well, currently our budgets, if we look at whatever is a wish list as per our LTIPP of the three services, over next 10 years, the current allocation of budget 2% of GDP with 8% growth and 10% increase every year should cater for all our requirements. That's a rough calculation which is done by headquarter IDS. In new capabilities, which we are yet to identify completely in cyber space, we have done that space, 52 satellites, we've calculated all that, but maybe there's something new which comes about. Tomorrow, if we want to say we want to have a Sudarshan Chakra complete, now that will be a real MDO, and that would require huge investments, which will be requiring beyond that. So we really haven't calculated the requirements of, say, Mission Sudarshan Chakra probably. What we are saying is, how do we integrate existing capabilities? These were 3-4 questions which I thought needed some more elaboration. And you can continue with the rest of the questions.
So, can I just clarify on, Abhinay, one was to me also. So yes, there is a little academic debate on centers of gravity. There are two definitions that, one is the older version definition, which has been given by Clausewitz, which also Milan Vigo speaks of. He says center of gravity is a source of power, it's the strength from where he gets the freedom of movement to execute, etc., etc., etc. But remember, there's also William Lind and Robert Leonard, who have given another definition. And one of the things he says of, kings and queens, the most powerful, piece on the chessboard is the queen. But you get the queen, the battle doesn't finish. It's only when you get the king. So let me try and now contextualize both these things to certain recent historical evidences. And so we can decide, and the audience is free to decide for themselves, what is the center of gravity. When the Iraq surge took place in 1991, the center of gravity was Saddam Hussein. They said Saddam Hussein and the Republican Guards go down and the nation falls. The Americans fought 10 years after that. My second example is Epic Fury. Decapitation of the regime and IRGC, the regime will fall. Who's asking for a ceasefire today? You can have a look. And my own experience, I commanded a corps in Punjab. And in Punjab, we've got these enclaves that are there. A river line runs, and beyond the river line, you have your own territory and you have international boundary. Now, in one of the wars, previous wars, we attacked head-on. We attacked the position of strength where the enemy was holding. And we had to destroy the bridge. Didn't work. In another operation, what we did was, we went across from one of the flanks, which was thought that you couldn't go through, with an armored regiment and an infantry battalion. And we took the crossing on the river line. The entire force ran away. And this has happened not one. I have 3 examples to give you. So is it his strength or his critical weakness? But as practitioners of war, we need to decide where the center of gravity lies. Because if you don't get that right, you will get into a campaign. Vietnam is a case in point. They thought North Vietnam. They put 674,000 tons of ordnance on North Vietnam. And what happened at the end? So I guess it's for us to understand, as practitioners of war, what is that center of gravity, the critical weakness that will allow for capitulation. I hope that answers it. Thank you.
Jayan sir,
Captain Sambal from College of Air Warfare, sir.
Admiral Karambir Singh, retired. So I just wanted to ask you, the panel, your views on this, matrix strategy which the Iranians used. I'll just sort of relate it to MDO. Because MDO is heavily reliant on networking, synchronization, etc., etc. But if your networks, they are your enablers, they are also your vulnerability. If you don't have enough resilience, and if your ability to command and control, your leadership is targeted, your networks are targeted, then adopting a strategy like the metric strategy, where you had 30 different people operating independently, given that kind of room for maneuver, would you equate that to mission command, or would you look at it as a different kind of a concept, which we could emulate in terms of a tipping point? If a tipping point comes in, especially with our northern neighbor, when if you lose your networking, you lose your ability of the leadership to carry out any kind of command and control. Would that be a strategy that we could think of? Just a question.
So, as I see, network hardening, network redundancy, alternate paths go hand in hand when you are transitioning from network into true network-centric operations. So currently, I would say that difficult to visualize the total breakdown of communication. We will still have our conventional ways of communication, but yes, degradation will be there. And you're right to some extent that delegation of operations would have to be done to cater for the contingency. But to visualize ourselves that it will be a complete blackout, perhaps not. But yes, for all our plans, we have to have a backup in case so we do exercise operating in a degraded environment. So that is one of the challenges which we have learned, that we must continue to exercise in a degraded environment. But for a big country like us, we are strengthening ourselves and having redundant paths to prevent a total failure. Yes, the backup plan would have to be there. Finally, the person on the ground would have to face the adversary. But it's very difficult for me to visualize something which will be totally blacked out. Yes, sir.
So maybe, sir, I was out, but I heard part of this thing. You are aware, sir, most of our networks are air-gapped. So taking out this network completely, unless we make a mistake, would be difficult. I also understand that technology is advancing, like SEMA tomorrow. You will be able to breach this air gap, what we have. So when technology will advance toward that said, we'll have that self-healing networks, artificial intelligence, etc. Presently, you're aware that NFS is air-gapped. We all will ride on it. And we are going to have this DCN as a hot standby to this, real hot standby. So seamlessly, we should be able to switch on. So we're looking at redundancy, multiple redundancies, and hot standbys for such communication architecture for future. What you said for mosaic defense, see, we are wanting to fight a net-centric warfare, or data-centric warfare. Mosaic defense doesn't work in it. It works in a different kind of environment. It will only be able to hit pre-designated. That can work on small chits given to 10 commanders at so-and-so time, go and do this. But that doesn't work in a net-centric environment, where we want information dominance, decision dominance. So that will become, we'll have to find ways and means to defend our networks.
That's why I asked you, you're dealing with a very sophisticated adversary in the north. You have to think of a situation where, or a tipping point, where you have to have a situation where, this whole reliance on networks, maybe think of edge computing. These are things that I thought maybe we could have as an alternate plan.
All these thoughts are on, sir.
Yeah, that's all.
With this, sir, we have come to the end of our session, sir. May we take a break, sir? Yes.
I extend sincere gratitude to the chair and distinguished speakers of this session for their valuable contributions. May I now request Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Training Command, Indian Air Force, to felicitate the panelists of the first session, followed by a photograph. Air Marshal Tejinder Singh. Vice Admiral Samir Saxena. Lieutenant General Devendra Sharma. May I now request all panelists to gather for a group photograph. Thank you, sir. This brings us to the end of the first session. The upcoming session will present the visualization of MDO from both land and maritime perspectives. May I now request everyone to proceed for a tea break, and all participants are requested to be seated by 1130 hours.
अच्छा ये
निमेश को बताना, निमेश को। उसकी बैठा दो। इसको बंद करवाना।
निकाल दिया। आगे वाला हटा, आगे वाला आगे वाली लाइट ज़्यादा हो, हाँ पानी के लिए हटाने आगे वाला रोशनी का लाइट।
अरे ऐसे मत उखाड़ मत, फिर बोलेंगे लगाने के लिए, तू लगा नहीं पाएगा, स्विच ऑफ होगा उसमें कोई। जस्ट टेक आउट द प्लग ना।
एक्चुअली क्या है सर, ये दोनों ऊपर है, ये भी चाहिए ना, ये दोनों साथ में करना
नहीं चाहिए, बंद कहाँ से हो चाहिए तो यहाँ से निकालो ना बेटा, यहाँ से मत निकालो, यहाँ से प्लग निकालो।
वो आ रहे पीके सर आ रहे।
Let him do this time. Don't worry. Don't do something. फिर बोलेंगे लगा दो, फिर लगा दो। ये चला गया। कोई नहीं चल रहा, मत उठाओ। ये तो नहीं जा रहा, मॉनिटर नहीं जा रहा है। आप ट्राई कर लो, 5 minutes की ट्राई, but don't break something now. नो बैग किसका पड़ा है? ये सीधे भाग गए थे। ये बड़ी
वो सिर्फ फूट है, उसका तो टूट गया, उसका घुमाया तो टूट गया, इसका ज़्यादा ये भी निकल जाता है। और टूल बैग लेके आ रहे हैं ना? नहीं वही है ना? हाँ बोलो, मैं लेके आऊँ फिर। क्या चाहिए बताओ? इसका वो चल रहा है क्या? वो वाला ऊपर वाला लाइट चल रहा है क्या? चाहिए क्या ना? अभी ये बंद कर दिया पूरा। हाँ उसका चल रहा है, इसका चल रहा है, बस आगे वाला अंदर लग गया, ये से आगे। अरे वो उसी से वो जा ही रहा है, उसको हटा दीजिए, बंद हो गया।
अगर लग सकता है ये नहीं होगा तो फिर then not so good. अगर ये रखना होगा तो फिर ये रखना। अभी आ रहा है बहुत बड़ा, तो फिर ये वाला ले लो। Take this one. ठीक है, वो आ रहा है नहीं आ रहा है?
दो सेट जुगाड़ है।
नहीं साइड में इधर देखो।
हाँ ये खोल दीजिए, हो जाएगा।
नहीं ये नहीं आई है।
बस हो गया, एक भी हटा दीजिए, कहानी हो जाएगा। और छोड़ी और रख दीजिए, अब हटा दिए तो हटा दीजिए।
नहीं आ जाएगा, ये आ जाएगा।
ये ले।
हाँ बस ठीक है, लीव इट ओवर हियर, चला गया।
एक बार बस अच्छा से नहीं लगाया तो दूसरे में लगाइए। नहीं चल रहा है, दूसरा चेक कर।
शिफ्ट भी है नहीं, आप उसको वही वाले ले आओ। नो नो प्लीज गेट दैट ऑन मी, उसी को लेके आइए आप, उसको लेके आइए वहाँ पर लाइए। दिस ग्लास है आपके पास? हाँ एक बच्चे को ठीक है, राइट साइड कीप इट ऑन द राइट, या कीप इट ऑन द राइट एंड कीप इट लाइक दैट ओनली। सर ये चिप है, ग्लास टूटा हुआ है। वुड के ऊपर रखो, आप वुड के ऊपर रखो।
क्या बस
लास्ट वन थिंग विद दिस बॉटम फ्रेम एंड दिस ग्लास विल होल्ड।
Get one more. Get one more.
इधर ही रख दो वरना सर के साथ लेंगे। वापिस आ जाना इधर ही, इसको उठाने
पानी के बोतल रखे हैं सुनिए कुछ
मतलब खाना है, उधर आ जाना दोनों, ठीक है? इधर सामने से करना
CNS के लिए ना वो एक पोडियम मंगवा रहा हूँ और मैं एक और समथिंग आज के लिए CNS के लिए एक पोडियम मंगवा रहा हूँ यहाँ पे रहना पोडियम में क्या बोलते हैं उसको यार ये डेस्क के ऊपर जो रखते हैं ना हाँ तो ही वांटेड हायर सो आई एम गेटिंग ये PA राय साहब आएंगे अगर ब्रेक से पहले आ जाते हैं तब तो एक बार टेस्ट करा लेना नहीं तो फिर ब्रेक के बाद यहाँ के लिए वैसे टीम हाँ डिटेल्ड है मधुरकर और 2 लड़के हैं हाँ जी हाँ जी हाँ जी हाँ हाँ मुझे वो सीधा सीधा इसलिए कर रहा हूँ
से नीचे से दोनों से साफ कर, नीचे से भी। इस पे अभी नहीं नीचे से रगड़ के साफ कर जल्दी। ये पकड़ लेना आता हूँ। सॉरी आई गॉट इट नो प्रॉब्लम। सर्विस स्टिल नो प्रॉब्लम।
भर के रख दो बस, कोई फायदा नहीं होगा। हाँ चेक हो
चेयर से आएंगे ये पूछ रहे
फायदा क्या है बोर्ड
तो एक बार पूछेंगे बस वो जो सर है ना उसमें डालना पड़ेगा ये बोला सारी टेबलों से नहीं है
या straight away welcome back.
मतलब आप क्या कहना चाहते हो? मैं इसमें सारे तो नहीं
गाना पहले थोड़ी का वीडियो थोड़ा बैठ जाएगा।
रख दिया। हाँ हाँ सर।
Welcome to Run Samwad.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I request to take your seats so that we can go ahead with further proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you to take your seats so that we can go ahead with further proceedings. All usherers are requested to guide all the guests to their seats, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we are awaiting address of Chief of Army Staff, so all are requested to please be seated so that we can go ahead with the proceedings.
and then translating it into a coherent fighting architecture. But this must always be technology enabled, not technology led. Therefore, the kill chain and the web kill chain must join hands to make it smart kill chain, as the human must remain on the loop exercising the judgment. Recognizing this, the Indian Army declared 2024 and 25 as years of technology absorption and has now declared years of 26 and 27 as years of networking and data centricity. The third, with domain fusion and the three I's as the enablers, advantage shifts to those who command technology, not merely operate it. So commanders must evolve into techno-commanders to deliver effects across domains. Technology absorption must become a command culture and must be driven from the top. So I'm sure the discussion in this Ran Samwad will help us to achieve the desired end state of building a force that does not know where one domain ends and another begins. Dhanyavad, Jai Hind. Now I'm open to questions.
At the outset, I'd like to thank you for the clarity you gave on the visualization of MDO for land forces. And that's usual. I must compliment you openly in front of everyone. Because brevity is the soul of everything. 2 points which I've been trying to think through. In terms of MDO, it's not only the land forces.
Mike, you'll have to hold it like
this.
this.
Yeah, it's not only the land aspect of MDO, but beyond. We talk of all domains, and yet we don't talk of the hybrid domain, through which, it's an abstract construct, A hybrid domain is something which people are operating, which is a norm for action. And hybrid doesn't refer to land, air, or sea. We know what we are talking of. We always talk of hybrid form of warfare. That's one thing for consideration. Second, once upon a time, we never used to speak about nuclear systems as part of a domain or anything. But today, the way the nuclear angle is being played up in terms of nuclear coercion, blackmail, and less than war situations, and the way we have to do with this, is there a case for us to start thinking of nuclear as a domain? It goes beyond your topic, but I thought I'll raise it. The third aspect is one thing which has come very clearly from all the talks, everyone who has spoken of today, is that the cognitive sphere and the cognitive base is the fundamental of MDO. If that cognitive domain and the information domain is not there, we are not very well off in MDO, and that has been highlighted even in Sindoor. If there was one problem we had, it was in this space. But yet, we are not using the power which India has. Let me explain it. We have a complete Ministry of Information and Broadcasting with the greatest network all over. And why are we trying to create other networks and other structures within when we have to subsume ourselves with the higher structure? Because at the end of the day, MDO is a national construct. It's not a service-specific construct, or it's not the construct of the armed forces. After all, we are talking of the whole of nation approach. I'm sorry I've taken this beyond what you have spoken, but I think in this gathering, if we don't discuss this, we'll be missing the bus. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll come back to you. I'll take on 2 questions more. Thereafter, we will discuss that. Yes, sir, please.
Thank you for your remarks, very comprehensive and well spoken. Just a question regarding it was heartening to know the development regarding the drone battalion. I was wondering whether we are taking an example from the Ukrainian army, where the drone battalions have become irregular battalions. In the sense, it's more like a voluntary club to join, and including industry, where it's a very nebulous and flexible organization, wherein people from all walks of life can walk in and participate, and industries from everywhere can come in. And there is some level of funding and assured support provided, which has really helped them, because if they want to produce 2 to 3 million drones per year and use them in that fashion, and they are more and more important in modern warfare. So are we thinking in some way of going in that direction? Also, it's important that, as you said, the psychological operations unit has been established. In some of the armies, particularly again Ukraine as an example, they've even established disinformation cells at the battalion level as well. So are we sort of forward thinking in that respect as well? Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Could I go for a question, please?
Yes, please.
My sense from the discussions that we've had since the morning is that when we talk about multi-domain warfare, we tend to talk about integration rather than bringing in more domains from the civil sector with us. So while we are focusing on the armed forces here, and you did mention that you bring ministries into the exercise which is done, can you throw some more light on how we are actually coordinating with the various ministries, and who exactly is going to be controlling these multi-domain operations?
Okay, sir.
This is in continuation of what General Shankar said. I think it is important we consider the nuclear domain. What happens is, due to some past instances, we have perceived nuclear domain to be only the political responsibility. But if you see globally, as well as you see our adversary,
the concept of conventional nuclear integration, the CNI, has come in a big way. Like if one sees the setting of Ran Samwad, the word N is not mentioned at all. So while we may not talk about our nuclear capabilities, we need not talk about how we function, we need not make press commitments on that. But however, analyzing the adversaries, what they do, is, I think, at most inescapable today. For example, if our adversary places his tactical nuclear weapons at a particular place, do we analyze or not? If I'm going to do targeting as a military planner, do I plan dual use facilities under attack? Similarly, it is for the defensive capability also. Weaker powers has used the ambiguity of putting conventional and nuclear together. Is it time to debate that we also exploit this ambiguity or not? I think there are no definite answers to it, because a lot of gray area is brought in, like the red lines, global pressures. These are all the results of a nuclear overhang, and they lower the nuclear threshold. And if, as military planners, we do not discuss, and as the General mentioned, that leading the battle, inter-domain understanding, we would fall short of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
I'll just take out these 3-4 first.
Right.
Otherwise, I'll forget. Okay. And 3 questions, I'll just tear it off, so it will become difficult thereafter to remember those. Okay, so PR Shankar has raised few questions or suggestions, but before that, we need to understand where the MDO is concerned. Is this concept new? In its new avatar, it is new. Is the nation trying to understand and give out some policies and rulings? If you see, all those who want in black and white want the rulings to come first and thereafter start following it. But I am a proponent that we should not have even the doctrine at all. We should not have even kind of a policies at all, so that we have a freedom to grow the way we want. Otherwise, there will be framework for the financial advisors and others. So what is important as of now is to let it grow. That's why for everything, whatever we were procuring also, we are going for the MOQ, minimum order quantity. So that once we stabilize, okay, this is what is required, thereafter only we'll go for the phase 2, where there will be a framework or parameter or policy which have to be laid out. The second issue is that as of now, everybody is most welcome to do whatever they wish to in all ministries, so that whatever is the best model, that model will become the base model for others to integrate. This is what is the freedom you must take from the positive perspective. And in this, military always leads by virtue of our structures and organization and the kind of funding which we have to an extent, that we should be able to lead in that. That's why when we say that what are we going to do at the multi-ministerial level, I would like to just say if we lead, others would like to come and join. That is what is the major aspect. Coming on to the issue of hybrid domain, yes, this is agreed, and of course this is kind of a part of the great growth. It's a subject in itself. So therefore, if it has to be discussed, it will have 2 days of a seminar in itself, and you are a proponent of that. You have been kind of taking so many your classes also on this issue. As the nuclear system is concerned, I must thank Chima sir, because he came to me about 1.5 years back, and since then, in all our war games which is there, whether it's the SAT or the multi-domain operations, we have been discussing this all these issues closed door. Even those issues which are being considered as taboo not to be discussed, those are being discussed, so that the awareness is there, because the nuclear is a reality along our both borders. Therefore, it is mandatory to be discussed, and good that he gave this kind of suggestion to us. We are having this closed door discussion on this, and with every day we are looking at the offensive as well as the defensive plans, and how are we required to take actions which are force preservation, force protection, and even force orchestration. The third issue which you brought out, so this is about the cognitive domain. So if you see COVID, we saw NDMA walked up to information broadcasting and said, okay, can you do anything? He said, we can do everything. And that's why NDMA and information broadcasting joined hands together as far as the COVID campaigns are concerned, which were supposed to be most successful campaigns. In Ops Sindoor, we have learned the lessons. We have already carried out those kind of coordinations, and those mini rehearsals are being carried out various stages, so that in a future kind of action, when it takes place, you will be finding it more convergence. When it comes to the leadership, again we have to look at the aspect of spider or a starfish or Aztec versus Apaches. That book you are well aware of. So we have to see the credibility increases if the source of truth are different and everybody is converging to the same information. But if you have a single source of truth and it's giving an information, then it may not be considered a source of truth. So keeping that in view, there are always views that you should have a single organization and you should have multiple organizations giving a fair kind of information which is considered near truth. As far as Admiral Chawla about the drone battalions which you have spoken about, sir, I would like to just bring out that why Ukraine is doing it. Because Ukraine and Russia both are falling short of the soldiers. And the forward areas are vacant as of now. So therefore, by virtue of the strategic depth being less, everybody has to play a role in this. Citizen warriors is the term which has been brought out from there. So what are we doing about it? As far as today, we are looking at approximately 15 regiments and about 34 batteries, and of course 286 Sashni platoons, SEMA platoons separately, then so on and so forth, other things also. What is relevant today that the call sign which has been given is eagle on the arm. Means every soldier should be able to fly a drone. Depending on what technology comes to us. If you see about 3 days back, the Indian Army has released a book where all kinds of drone aspirations have been given out to the industry so that industry knows about it. So simultaneously what we are doing, in every school of instruction, every unit, every divisional headquarter, maximum pilots are being trained. So what it means? That the ecosystem of 12 lakh population should be ready to fly those drones. We should be able to understand the networking of those drones. Now coming on to the forward areas. Forward areas, the issue is there are Amazon drones, there are drone Didi drones, there are agriculture drones which are there. So are people aware to carry out this activity there along the border? The answer is yes. So at the divisional level, which has a volume, so that volume is being now controlled by UCC. UCC means basically a divisional commander, 2-star, will be controlling all drones which are flying in those areas. So the purpose it is meant for, it can be used. And also to identify, or the IFF, because there are many drones which are coming from the enemy side. Let's say from a particular front, we may have, let's say, X number of drones, and our side X number of drones. From a different front, we may have 3X types of drones. So keeping that in view, the density would be so high that we will be requiring a different agency to handle it. So that we are working out, various software being worked out by the IDS, by the Air Force, by the Army. Whatever comes out the best, we will integrate with that. So is there a requirement for every soldier to be, every citizen to be responsible for that? The answer is yes. We are also having the internet apps which are there, where any drone which is being located, that will be geolocated and the information will be punched in. Once it is punched in, we will get to know whether it's an enemy drone or our drone, because our drone's locations would be known. So this is the way we are looking at. We are not short of the manpower. The only thing is the coordination and using the artificial intelligence to kind of decide what is to be done. In Ops Sindoor, one of the lessons what we learned, that when the drones were flying, IFF was difficult. Therefore, the jamming also was very, very effective. We didn't know for whom. So that is what something has to be understood. That's a fact which we need to understand. It's a lesson which we have drawn, and we have to move forward from that. As far as embedded battalion disinformation cell is concerned, yes, this is a very, very important thing. So we have just made the beginning. Psychological Defense Division as of now is working with the Corps and Command. We have the, at the divisional level, of course, we do not have. Corps and Command level, we have it. This is phase 1. Based on this, we will move on to phase 2, phase 3. What we have to understand, when the expeditionary forces go, they have a different concept because they are going to alien area. They don't know even the culture of that area. They don't know even the terrain of that area. So the disinformation campaign plays a very, very important role vis-a-vis when you're going just across the border. So there is a difference. And here the command and control of the senior commanders will also play a pivotal role. But the social media, if you see, we have opened up in a big way. Our Instagram also been opened up so that every soldier who is there will also know which is the single source of truth which he has to look into. In Ops Sindoor, we had closed down all the Twitter handles, all the social media handles, other than the ADG Stratcom. So there was one single source of truth, which from soldier to the top man, everybody was looking at to get the information. As far as Anand sir has asked about the MDO, integration in the civil sector, this is a very good point which has been given out. I would like to just give out that as far as the AI is also concerned, we are working out with various agencies. Shubham LLM we are looking at as of now. so many agencies during the time of Op Sindoor had come to us offering various helps, which we took also. And some agencies which are there, based in India, we are already working out and we already signed some contracts. Coming on to the ministries which are there, suffice to say that that time we did not have the GPUs to process the kind of information which was coming to us. And it was the MIT which provided us the GPUs which helped us in kind of processing those kind of information. So today, BISAG, MIT and so many other agencies which are there, including, if I can say that some organizations, I would not like to name them, they are working in close contact with us to make sure that whatever resources are required, either given to us or they become a co-partners. All the IITs which are there, they are working out in a close collaboration. Sambhav 2, which is coming up, is again coming up with a collaboration with IIT Chennai. So I would like just to say that the academia, industry, policymakers, and the bureaucrats, everybody is joining hands as far as the MDO is concerned. Chima's point I've already given out. Yes, the lady there.
Thank you so much. My name is Soumya. I'm from the Observer Research Foundation. In your last statement, you said that we have included academia, ministries, and so on and so forth, but you missed out this board here, think tank. So I wanted to know that how are you planning to integrate think tanks into the cognitive warfare, especially? And because mostly armed forces are supposed to create facts on the ground, whereas think tanks are supposed to take it forward and amplify it for the global outreach. So how are you going to utilize the think tanks? Because we keep approaching, but we also want to know that how armed forces looks at think tanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, please. Yeah, Bala. I think you better take the mic so that runner also. आप अंदर आके बेटा उसको ऑन कीजिए. यहाँ से पास कर दो. Just pass on this mic. Pass on this mic.
Emerson Saju, sir. One of the key points that you raised in your talk was about reformation and technology. So since we are now have had experience of Agnipath scheme for last so many years, 4 years, and the first batch is about to pass out, and with this reduced training period which is there, is it time now for us to look at our induction process as a whole, so that we are able to utilize a more techno-savvy population and then use this reduced time so that they are adapted well to the MDO?
Thank you.
Jayan sir, Captain Samuel from the Navy, sir, College of Air Warfare. Sir, today's TBA, if we talk about, it is going to have mosaic lines of operation, and the further challenges is going to be the proliferation which comes up with it. Also, there's going to be an increase in the cognitive burden because of the pace of operations. Now, typically, if we go by the OPART, which talks about sequencing and phasing, seeing this particular rapid pace in operations, will we be able to actually be able to carry out sequencing and phasing, which is quite essential for joint operations as well as integrated operations? Or probably we'll have to get all the forces under a common umbrella. Otherwise, it would be like fighting a 21st century war with the mindset of a 20th century force.
So, do I take it your question is OPART should be sequential in nature, or there should be a new way to handle it?
A new way to handle it, so because of the pace of operations which will take place.
Point taken. Thank you. So, Ms. Soumya, you asked about the...
Sorry.
3 questions at a time, then I'll get back. You talked about the how are we integrating the think tank. So let me tell you that about a year and a half back, and some officers are here, including General Shivani, we requested our veterans, whom we consider equivalent to think tanks, to kind of give us various thought process in terms of strategic outlook and technology, and also for the HR and civil military fusion. 4 subjects were chosen, and different teams were made. 2 came out with a lot of very concrete recommendations in terms of strategy and technology absorption. And whatever we have done in 1.5 years, these were done as part of it. Similarly, the think tanks, yesterday I was listening to one of the think tanks complete what all actions have been carried out. I'm very happy to say that the CAT establishments and the command headquarters are dealing with these think tanks directly, giving them the subject study and thereafter taking the feedback. Same is the case with the CDM which is here, Jan Srinivas is sitting here, is carrying out similar kind of studies and coming back to you. So if your think tank is ready to kind of have that kind of a credible feedback which we are looking at, we are definitely would like to combine with you. This is a practice in execution and we would like to further build upon that. That's as far as the integration of think tank is concerned. What is more important during the time of operations, we would need better expertise from you so that you can give us recommendations in a shorter time frame with the data which you already have, because we may not be able to share so much of data at that point of time. Moving ahead, Saju, Agnipath scheme. You are absolutely right. As far as this Agnipath scheme is concerned, the induction needs to be reviewed. So when we look at 22 years or 23 years, of course, Army wanted 23 years always. But what is important is that the IIT technological qualified people who are there, ITI, they are going to help us in a big way. Even we are looking at the education core, which all the three services have. Now we have changed the terms and conditions for that to have the cyber experts, linguist experts and other experts we are looking at. Similarly, the territorial army what we had in forward areas, we are having the linguistic experts because they are the ones who are supposed to be there in forward areas. So they are part of the cognitive domain also, and so many other, even cyber, they are being used for that purpose. So in forward areas also we are using. So these three entries we are already having it. We are looking at more upgradation, and with the support of all the three services, I am sure that we will be able to change the terms and conditions which are existing today to a better one, so that the training period, which is kind of now shortened, we should be able to overcome the deficiency which is there. As far as the Naval War College, or part what you have already said, that firstly what we have to see that it is the way of explanation that OPOT has to follow these lines. But it is not mandatory that those lines have to be followed. It is part of the planning process. And the planning process starts with the regressive analysis. What it means, the end state has to be identified first. If the end state has to be identified, the lines in between or the channels in between can always be skipped, or the different agencies can be given different responsibilities. So that is what has to be understood. Now when we talk about the OODA loop shortened, I take it in a different way. There are concurrent OODA loops which are more than one at one point of time. So one commander may not be able to give the decision of every OODA loop. He will have to have a team. That's why it was rightly brought out, one general officer cannot take the credit of a battle today. So there will be a team of people who will be fighting various OODA loops. Wherever some kind of interaction is required will be carried out. Otherwise they'll be free to execute that OODA loop cycle for the execution purpose which is required. Here also I would like to answer a question that time which was supposed to be part of the T but I could not meet. Is as far as the operational art is concerned, there are two schools of thought. One says that it connects the strategy and the tactics. The second school of thought is operational art is an art. It can be played up at the strategic level, at the operational level, and at the tactical level. I belong to the second school of thought. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Vice Admiral Girish Luthra, retired. My first part of the question relates to some discussion already on the civil-military interface. While we are talking about civil-military interface, but I think the need to get sector-specific as to what is needed from which sector in terms of their integration into the MDO. And the sectors are many, whether it is IT sector or, space, AI, ML sectors, data centers, defense, aerospace sectors, MRO, logistics, oil and gas, banking and finance, shipping, ports, airports, power sector, communication. So the list is long. So therefore for MDO, we need to get very specific for each sector as to how that sector plugs into MDO. And as soon as a sector plugs into MDO, that sector itself becomes vulnerable. We have seen now in the Iran-US war that Anduril or Palantir and the data centers, AWS, Microsoft AWS, they have come under attack. So as soon as these part of the industrial establishments get integrated, they also bring vulnerabilities in the sense that they become targets of that attack themselves. So therefore their defense itself becomes a part of the planning process. Depending upon the level of integration that we achieve with them, that will define the level of vulnerability that these agencies also have. So therefore this defense offense interface will become very, very important in multi-domain operations. Since morning I've seen, of course, there is a lot of emphasis on offensive operations, but definitely defensive operations will integrate as much as offensive operations because expansion of defensive capabilities will be substantial. So therefore, for sector specific, is there anything that we are at present doing? The second part is related to all part discussions since morning and also in your part. Whether we are refining or we have refined already the commander's estimate of the situation CES process or the earlier appreciation process to incorporate MDO into it fully. And my only suggestion there is that while the sequencing and phasing and lines of effort, all those points are very valid and remain as was covered in the morning presentation also from the Army's Training Command. But I think a specific work on adaptation part will be very important in the CES process, and adaptation really in MDO will be key because the escalation de-escalation matrix may not flow as envisaged at the time of writing of the CES. So therefore adaptation I think will become, but if it has been incorporated or if some work is being done in that direction. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Sir, yes.
Yeah.
As a Brigadier Pratik Parashar, sir. So I'm seeking views on two interconnected things. One is spoken about the Agnipath scheme, sir. Second, also there was talk about society being a domain, sir. And taking an example from there, the current Iran warfare, sir, how they have been able to have the resilience coming from the Basij, that is the volunteer forces, which was formed sometime in 70s during the Iran-Iraq war, and how they have ensured the flow of information and action on ground through this Basij force. So at a societal level, sir, they have a structure which is very loose, but it is still very resilient. And if we need to pick up some lessons from there, there is a possibility that the Agni Veers, which are going to go into the civil domain from January onwards, and taking that we also need to create a society as a domain. So there is a possibility that we keep a feedback or a actionable feedback into these Agniveers when they go into the society, sir, and be able to create that resilience, or in fact even utilize them for inputs, information, intelligence, and also information warfare in terms of narrative building. So there are a lot of possibilities if we are able to tap and create some loose structure to start with, and maybe in 5 years or 10 years it can become a culture in the society, sir. Your views on that, sir?
Okay, thank you. So I'll just take one by one. Puneet, you have said the societal level. Firstly, what we have to understand that the society's awareness is very, very important. When people moved to America, the binding factor was initially the gold, thereafter the American dream, or the development which is binding them together, if I can bring out that. As far the Iran war is concerned, what is the binding factor? It is basically the oppressed or the religion which is a binding factor. As far as India is concerned, I think our national identity, which is mushrooming or increasing with every passing day, and we can say now proudly we are Indian by virtue of the kind of a, if I can say, identity which is being accepted all over the world. That is one. But what is important is, are we connected at various levels? To connect, you require an architecture. In our sense, what I am looking at, that our academia can play a very, very important role, point number one. At the military level, if we are looking at, which we are reviewing as of now, is the reservist terms and conditions. That is because now it is no more the physical kind of fitness which is required. Presently, we have only, let's say, the JCOs or lieutenant colonels and below as reservists. But now is the time which has come that we should have that, remove that embargo of the age as well as the rank which is there, because multi-domain operation allows us to have senior ranking officer, adequate senior age officers also, or the JCOs and OR, to kind of be part of our MDO journey. So this is the revisit which we are carrying out. Agniveer, it's a good suggestion. We will take it forward, that as they go, there is a requirement for us to have not a kind of alumni, but their whereabouts, where are they today, and how we can get them back as per the requirement. There will be a period, there will be a kind of a reservist, that clause will be introduced later, but we will have to see how to go about it, because they will be getting absorbed in the CAPF and others also. Can they be relieved at that point of time, because they may be part of the same BSF which is along the border. So that is something which we need to work out. As far as operational art which has been brought out, that what is the commander's estimate of situation, you're absolutely right, this is a new subject, and when we started, everybody was saying, and even today, my Army War College says, no, it should be part of the same main SAT, so that we can work out on this. But no, today we have to clearly space EW, cognitive, as well as cyber, and so many other stakeholders. We have to firstly identify with them that how we are going to work out. And then have a commander estimate of situation. Then you have the bean counting SAT, kitne ship gaye, kitne tank gaye, combine them together and then come out with it. So we are trying to keep it separate so that the MDO estimate of situation should be the primary focus, and thereafter we should add on, for which we have been an experienced person for last 40 years. Adaptation, this is something important, and you will agree that the younger generation is much more adaptable vis-a-vis the senior generation. So giving you the example that in one of the MDO SAT, when it was told that if a, let's say, computer has been infected, what will you do? The senior generation gave the answer that we will isolate it. The junior generation gave the answer, no, we must not isolate, we must let it remain there and let the enemy exploit it, and we should feed the misinformation in that. So there is a difference of perception. So this risk-taking capability of the younger generation in MDO is very high. Therefore, in all these such units and other establishments, we are trying to feed in the younger generation to do our margdarshan at most of the places. As far as civil military interface is concerned, I think it's a subject in itself, because the merchants of war which is there, from merchants of war to citizen warrior, and also the government agencies which are the enablers, we are working with them day and night. And when we say the land forces, in land forces, all these names which you gave out are part of the land forces. Because land force is not fought by the army alone. With all these people we fight together. And that's why if you see our structures also, OL, Operation Logistics, deal with aviation, railways. In this Op Sindoor also, the Union War Book was not invoked. But the railways were carrying out their activities. They were moving the ammunition trains and whatever was required. So I just wish to say that MDO structure may not be giving out that, but within the three services, we have carried out those kind of a thing under the guidance of CDS. That we have our connections which are there are present. They are getting strengthened with every passing day. But the best part is the other ministries are coming forward. What do you want? Do let us know. And even these states for that matter. Even these state war books are being now reviewed, because they have been about 30, 40 years old. Thank you, sir. I think the time is up. So thank you very much.
May I now request Chief of the Army Staff to receive a memento from Air Officer Commanding in Chief, Training Command, Indian Air Force. Firstly, the Run Samwad memento. May I now request Chief of the Army Staff to receive the Headquarter Training Command memento.
One second. 1 second.
Sir.
I have two issues I thought that maybe required some more clarification. One is about a suggestion by General Shankar that nuclear weapons or nuclear issues could be considered as a domain warfare. That As far as India is concerned, we have always considered nuclear weapons not as weapons of war fighting, but of deterrence. So when we talk about deterrence, we all know deterrence is actually a mind game. So hence, this will be part of that cognitive domain when you try and deter something. So nuclear weapons by themselves do not form a domain. Yes, they have an impact on conventional warfare, as Admiral Chima had brought out. And certainly there has to be a connect between the conventional and the nuclear domain, which the chief mentioned that the number of war games, this particular issue is being debated. You must have also heard the Prime Minister after Operation Sindoor had said that India will not be deterred by nuclear blackmail. So this is one more new normal which has been added into our nuclear. So for me, one way to understand is that we should be able to operate even in a post-strike environment, conventional operation. So there's link between these two gets established. Second issue was coming between civil and military fusion, and that was by Admiral Luthra and some lady over there. They were asking as to what will be the role of think tanks. I think in older domains of warfare, the fighters were actually fixed. So they were airmen, they were sailors, they were soldiers. But in newer domains of warfare, I'm not sure that if there will be only uniformed community will be part of it. Say for example, if we are to have space command in future, and we are to carry out some proximity operations or RV operations, who better than a scientist who has carried out docking operations? He should be part of the system. Similarly, when we talk about information warfare or cognitive warfare, we need to have psychologists over there, we'll have to have media personalities over there. Similarly, for artificial intelligence, cyber, etc., obviously they'll be professionals who are better than uniformed community, and they should be forming part of it. So tomorrow's structure for this warfare in new domains will be slightly hybrid. It will take help of not only such professionals and individuals, either a part of structures or part of territorial army, and also some organizations may be part of it, loosely attached to the system. That's how I foresee in future happening. Thank you.
May I now request Admiral Dinesh Kumar Tripathi, Param Vishish Seva Medal, Ati Vishish Seva Medal, Nausena Medal, Chief of Naval Staff, for addressing the gathering on Maritime Forces Visualization of MDO.
So I've been given 15 minutes. I'll try and stick to that. General Anil Chauhan, Chief of Defense Staff, Commanders-in-Chief from the 3 services, Principal Staff Officers. Of course, we have got Air Chief Marshal Fali Major, the previous Air Chief, the former Air Chief, and Admiral Karamveer Singh, former Chief of Naval Staff, General Flag and Air Officers, members from the think tanks, distinguished invitees, all the participants who are sitting, including on the back rows. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. I'm indeed privileged to be standing here for the second edition of Run Samwad. As some of you would know, the inaugural edition had set a very high benchmark last year at Mau. It brought together the practitioners, the policymakers, and the wider national security community for meaningful engagement. And therefore, in continuation here in Bengaluru, the India's IT Nerve Center, it reflects not only the success of that endeavor, but also a growing recognition that modern conflicts demand a closer integration of strategic thought and technological capability. So my compliments to the CDS for visualizing this initiative and to HQ Ideas for executing it. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are meeting against the backdrop of continuing instability in our extended neighborhood. All of you are aware. The ongoing tensions in West Asia and subsequent disruptions to maritime traffic are reminders that security is interconnected, persistent, and unforgiving, where distance from conflict does not equate distance from its consequences. At the same time, advances in technology are driving a convergence of domains and a compression of timelines. Our Honorable Defence Minister had observed in the last edition of Run Samwad, and he had said that the present era is defined by non-linear and multi-domain warfare. Today, there is no fixed system of war, no rigid doctrine that we can blindly rely upon, unquote. So in many ways, multi-domain operations are not different from our civilizational wisdom. Our own strategic thought has long recognized that the pursuit of national objectives extends beyond any single form or domain of conflict. Kautilya's Arthashastra speaks of warfare through counsel, which is what they call mantra yudh. Covert means or guda yudh, and force, obviously danda yudh. And integrated application of instruments where diplomacy, deception, and military power operate together to achieve state objectives. This continuity is evident in contemporary doctrines across major militaries across the world, where the articulation may vary, but the principle does not. With that as a backdrop, I have structured my talks in two parts. First, I would provide a brief visualization of the multi-domain maritime battle space, and then the so what, where I would talk about how the Indian Navy is maximizing its effectiveness through multi-domain operations. To start, I would say it upfront that the multi-domain character of maritime operations is not new to the Indian Navy or to any large navy across the world. Navies have always operated across multiple domains, extending from the subsea and surface to the air and space, and increasingly leveraging the electromagnetic, cyber, and cognitive domains in achieving our outcomes. What has changed, however, is the character of this maritime battle space, which today can be visualized as a dense yet more transparent, layered yet deeply interconnected grid extending from the seabed to space domain. Within this interconnected grid, the nature and intensity of interaction between different elements are being shaped by three defining attributes, that is the speed, scale, and simultaneity. First and foremost is speed. The ongoing conflict in West Asia illustrates that speed is no longer merely an enabler of warfare, but a distinct capability. AI-driven battlefield decision systems, amongst them such as Lavender, Gospel, and Palantir's Gotham, link satellite feeds, surveillance inputs, and phone records to process thousands of targets in compressed cycles and conduct precision strikes. In the maritime context, such developments have been translated to battle space, where multiple sensors across domains feed into a shared network and the traditional constructs of detection, identification, decision, and engagement are compressed in time. As a result, we are witnessing a transition from linear kill chain to network kill webs, entailing dynamic multinodal interactions across the grid to deliver instant effects across the vast expanse of the seas. Such distributed maritime operations are underpinned by a parallel scaling of lethality on both crude and uncrewed assets. Design advancements like universal vertical launch systems now enable ships to carry a wider and larger mix of weapons across domains. At the same time, growing modularity of warships, as also uncrewed systems with strap-on payloads, allows rapid role adapting for surveillance, for air defense, and for strike roles, just to name a few. So whether it is the Magura drones launching surface-to-air missiles, or Ursula USVs deploying FBB drones, lethality from micro platforms is scaling macro effects at sea. And the third shift, of course, is simultaneity. The interconnected maritime grid is witnessing enhanced military activity by states as well as non-state actors, complicating attribution of origin, intent, and responsibility. So disruptions near the Straits of Hormuz, apart from the severe economic consequences, have also led to a significant increase in dark vessels that operate on the seas, further highlighting the simultaneity of security, economic, and informational challenges within the maritime domain. In such an overlapping and interconnected maritime battle space, it is the ability to manage speed, harness scale, and orchestrate simultaneity that will, in my view, continue to determine operational advantages. Which brings me to the second part of my talk. So what is the Indian Navy doing to navigate this evolving battle space? Here our approach is centered on maximizing operational effectiveness in a multi-domain environment through three interlinked pillars. That is the physical, the conceptual, and the human. At the most visible and the physical element level, our response lies in how we structure our force and how we prepare it to operate across domains for delivering decisive outcomes. In this context, the future fleet will not be defined by platforms alone, but by the efforts it can generate in an integrated manner. Accordingly, we are shaping a force that is capable, resilient, and inherently networked. This includes an optimum mix of low-cost and high-end solutions for the entire range of missions for the future. Our ability to operate in distributed yet connected manner with seamless linkages between sensors and shooters across all domains. Integration of long-range precision strike capabilities along with kinetic and non-kinetic defense capabilities. We are pursuing augmentation of fleet capabilities with uncrewed and autonomous solutions across the domains in accordance with Indian Navy's vision for unmanned systems. Guiding such efforts is our commitment to Atmanirbharta that ensures strategic autonomy and effective cross-domain integration through sovereign capabilities. In that context, the Navy's indigenous combat management system, just to give you an example, evolved into its fourth generation through spiral development, stands out as a key enabler of multi-domain effectiveness across our platforms. Designed and developed by VESI in partnership with the industry, the CMS integrates multiple nodes across domains to enable faster decision-making and coordinated engagement. As part of operational preparedness, our exercises entail multi-domain operations under realistic conditions, integrating conventional, cyber, and information dimensions. In that context, our theater-level operational exercise, or TROPEX, held last year, integrated a major real-life cyber exercise. In addition, the Tri-Services Exercise Trishul, which was conducted or coordinated by the Navy in November of last year, fostered coordination with sister services to deliver integrated cross-domain effects. Our objective is clear: to build a force that is not only capable and mission-ready, but also integrated, networked, and prepared to deliver decisive multi-domain effects. If the physical pillar provides capability, the conceptual pillar provides coherence. This coherence is anchored in a clear and enduring strategic direction. The Navy's Vision 2047, while complementing the Defense Forces Vision 2047, aligns our long-term trajectory with the national goal of Viksit Bharat. Parallelly, our doctrine, strategies, and operational concepts are under continuous refinement. The recently revised Indian Maritime Doctrine formalizes our approach to the no war, no peace facet within the conflict spectrum. Similarly, we have undertaken a comprehensive revision of the Indian Navy's maritime security strategy, aligned with joint and tri-services constructs, reflecting an effort to ensure unity of thought and action. This strategy is scheduled for release in the coming week. Further, in this age of constant beta, where systems undergo perpetual updates and upgrades, we have embraced the concept of spiral development with focus on iterative prototypes and attempting to scale what works rather than wait for a perfect product. At the same time, we are also focused on a concept-based approach to technology induction, where we are first identifying the warfighting concepts that will matter in a contested, degraded, and data-saturated multi-domain environments, and then developing or acquiring systems that serve those concepts. The final and the most decisive pillar is the human element. Irrespective of the pace of technological advancement, no algorithm can replicate the judgment, the instinct, and resilience of a well-trained sailor. The character of a battle space is evolving, and so must the character of the warfighter. Thus, we are running structural programs of skilling, upskilling, and reskilling in emerging domains such as AI, quantum technologies, and robotics, to name a few, to build expertise within the force. Our training architecture is being progressively aligned to operational realities, leveraging simulators and digital twins to ensure that we train under conditions that reflect the complexity of modern conflict. Equally important is the imperative of developing understanding, jointness, and integration at the human level. We remain committed to enhancing interaction at all levels with personnel from sister services and other national agencies, from training institutions to operational commands and naval headquarters. Ultimately, we do believe that in an era defined by speed, scale, and simultaneity, it is the seamless integration of our physical capabilities, conceptual clarity, and human capital that I just enunciated that will determine our effectiveness in multi-domain operations. So to conclude, for the Indian Navy, multi-domain operations are intrinsic to our ethos, and our endeavor is to build a combat-ready, credible, cohesive, and future-ready force that is not only capable in each domain, but decisive in their integration. I would like to thank the organizers of Run Samvad 2026 for affording me this opportunity to share my views. I wish the event a resounding success. I am confident that this seminar will continue to grow in stature and substance, imparting valuable insights that will enrich our collective understanding of the future battle space. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jalve Vyas, Balve Vitas. I am ready for questions. I am told it is 10 minutes.
Check. Join, sir. Join, sir. Group Captain Kranti from Air Force Academy at the last.
Where are you? Group Captain?
Group Captain Kranti, sir, from Air Force Academy.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the question pertains to the human element, what you just now covered. And my question is on cognitive overload. Now, sir, as we add the cyber space and layers, cyberspace and information, these layers to the land, air and maritime domain. So at what point do you envisage this visualization would be cluttered, and how do we design an MDO that filters for relevance and rather than just abundance? Thank you, sir.
What for relevance? Sorry, I missed the...
It just filters for the relevance and rather than just pumping abundant information, which may not be relevant for a correct tactical or strategic decision.
Okay. I'll take two more.
Jain sir, I am Brigadier Lalit Sharma, Commandant NCO Academy, sir. Sir, my question pertains to the carrier-based group and amphibious operations. And we all know that what they bring onto the table at the strategic level. So are we looking at enhancing our capabilities on those domains?
Okay. Last. One more. Or is it lunchtime? Somebody from behind, third question. I'll feel very aggrieved if you don't ask me one more question. Army Chief साहब ने इतने question पूछे हैं. Okay. Yeah, third question. Yeah, they're there. Don't ask about, within the topic. Yeah.
Sir, thank you for allowing us. If you could give us an understanding, what are the lessons learned from the Iran war, and in particular, if you could look at resilience of Indian industry, since Atmanirbhar and making most of the weapons are a priority, sir.
All right. So, as the Navy does, it is always from reverse order. Lessons learned from the Iran war, I think it is too early right now. Though we are monitoring the activities, what is happening, I think respective domains, and I think it is beyond domains. At the Naval Headquarters level, I am sure the CNCs are doing the same. A lot of CNCs are sitting here. We are monitoring like a hawk what is happening, what is working, what is not working, what we can maybe imbibe from that, what is to be done, more importantly, what is not to be done. So, that part is being collated, but to say that we have learned certain lessons because the war is still going on. The kinetic actions have not stopped, notwithstanding whatever tweets have gone out. So you are also aware of that, but you can be just assured that the services are looking at this in all seriousness on a regular basis, I would say 24/7, if I can say that, and learning the correct lessons. And we'll come out with it whenever the timing is correct. Brigadier Lalit Sharma's question, I think you have answered yourself, the importance of carrier battle group and the amphibious forces. Certainly they carry a punch when they are to be used. Even in this Iran-Iraq war, you saw the utilization of the carrier battle group from the US side, and they wanted to then bring in, and they did bring in, a large amphibious force. which was kind of amphibious demonstration till today, as on today. Whether they would have used that or they wanted to use it, we will not know today. At some point of time, one would discuss this with our counterparts in the US armed forces, and hopefully they will tell us what was it? Was it an amphibious feint? It was just an amphibious kind of, they wanted to carry out amphibious demonstration, or they actually wanted to use, and if yes, where? But they did move in. We were monitoring the position of both the US carrier battle group as also the two amphibious ready groups which they deployed on a kind of regular basis. Large number of aircraft operations, large number of operations which were carried out on land were launched from this carrier battle group. And this we monitored because our ships were deployed there only. So we were monitoring how many aircrafts are being launched in which wave, and etc., etc. So some details obviously cannot be shared here. But both the carrier battle groups and amphibious ready groups do have relevance, do have purpose. It will be dependent upon the tactical and operational situation and the strategic guidance which comes from the leadership as to what is to be used, what is the task which is given, and based on which the operational commanders will formulate their own plans and utilize these platforms of great value. As far as Group Captain Tarati is concerned, it's a great question, first of all. Yes, that we are putting more and more, and at what point of time, the human will say, sorry, I can't, process all that. But the good news is that there is technology, and therefore, what 15, 20, 30 years back used to take manual labor to make sense of a pool of data, that is now being done in a few minutes to few seconds by machines and algorithms. So you now get what you want to read amongst the plethora of data which is there. Having said that, I would still go with my statement that it is the human's decision finally. Only the data is given by the machines. Machines will probably not tell you what is to be done. It can give you an option, but thereafter, I think the expertise, the experience, the battle hardiness of the operational commanders or the tactical commanders who are there on the scene, or even from the headquarters, that decision will be taken by the humans based on many other factors which actually machines cannot sense. And that is why I feel that the importance of cognitive warfare is highly relevant, and it is being pushed by CDS. I'm sure you must have heard him at many places. It is for us now as war fighters, and especially for the younger generation who are sitting there, that you please take this very seriously, because you will. This is a leadership challenge. It is not only a battle factor. It is a leadership challenge for you as to how much you want to load your officers, sailors, your tactical teams, and how to use the technology in which manner. So kindly look at it because there will be things which I would say which will be deliberately put by the enemy to clog your decision cycles. And that is where you will have to make a decision as to what is to be believed and what is not to be believed. That machines cannot tell you. It is the human element, human brain only can tell you that this doesn't look right. You may go wrong at some point of time, but it is still better than just blindly relying on the machines. So, good question. It is a subject in itself, I would say, cognitive warfare, and I'm sure the war colleges, various war colleges will deliberate on this and come out with some suggestions for the headquarters, which can be then told to the operational and the tactical commanders. The time, sir? More time? Any more questions?
Sir.
Yeah. Media?
Yes, sir. Sir.
Media?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sir, media.
Sir.
Okay.
Sir, sir, may I ask, sir? May I ask? Sir, I'm Nandita Dagar from DD News and DD India. Sir, as the top leader of the Indian Navy, what is the conclusion that you've drawn from this 36-day war between US, Israel versus Iran? Also, are their USS George Washington and the carrier battle group was very, very vulnerable to very cheap, inexpensive unmanned aerial vehicles. What is the Navy's strategy? You yourself have commanded an aircraft carrier. What is the Navy's strategy so that what have we learned that our carrier battle groups or carrier strike groups are not vulnerable to this kind of asymmetric warfare? And in one or two lines, the conclusion that you have drawn so that it can be part of our doctrines. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, as I said earlier, it is too early to say anything on the lessons learned part. But just to suffice it to say that the battle space transparency is so clear today that anything which can be seen, which is moving, which is stationary, is vulnerable. If you want, in whichever manner you want to define vulnerability. So every platform on land, at sea, in space is vulnerable. I think the least vulnerable elements are which are below the surface of water, because they cannot be seen. And it is very difficult to detect, especially in this part of the world where the salinity and other hydrological conditions make it almost kind of impossible to detect a submarine unless you've got a very advanced kind of sensors. So in this 36-day war, if offhand, if I have to say, it is resilience. I think supply chains, which has been demonstrated by the parties, and the intrinsic capability of the carrier battle group, which was demonstrated. George Washington is a different story. It's all there in the open. It has nothing to do with this war. Let me be very clear about it. So it had its own problems. It has nothing to do with this war. But Abraham Lincoln actually was here, it's still there, and carrying out what it's supposed to do. That is Project Power from Sea. And it is doing it very effectively. Because as I said, we have been monitoring exactly how many strikes it has been doing it. As far as the vulnerability is concerned, it is totally dependent upon who is your adversary, what kind of capability, offensive capability the adversary has got, and versus what kind of defensive capability the platform has got. So I have no doubt in my mind that all that calculation must have gone into, whether it is the Indo-PACOM commander or the CENTCOM commander, before they deployed the asset, and they always had the belief that although all platforms are vulnerable, but in this case, this will meet what it's supposed to do. And it has done, it is doing as we speak.
So sorry, yeah. I meant USS Abraham Lincoln only.
उसका आंसर तो मैंने आपको दे दिया अच्छी तरह से.
Sir, I misspoke.
जी, no issues. सबसे गलती होती है. अच्छा, नेवी स्ट्रेटजी के बारे में आपने पूछा था कि हमारी नेवी स्ट्रेटजी क्या है. मैंने आपको you didn't attend my press conference on the Navy Day. I think I have told enough about it. Of course, we will learn lessons from the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, which we have already done, and it is continuing. And from this, we'll learn and we'll obviously make changes as required. Technology is changing at the speed of thought. I mean, it's a euphemism, but I'm just telling it is changing so fast that adaptability is the key. You choose some technology today, 3 years from now, maybe it is outdated. And I'm being very generous. But at the same time, you have no choice. If you want to become Atmanirbhar force, you have to utilize whatever technology is available within the country. And I can tell you, and I'm sure you must be aware, that there are enough young people here, enough MSMEs, as also our PSUs and DPSUs who are working relentlessly in this field. And we go out to them, sometimes they reach us, and I feel that we are in this breakout zone as far as the defense ecosystem is concerned. And after a few years, I think we'll have all the technologies which are required to become Atmanirbhar. And Navy is doing exactly as per that.
Sir, although red light is on, sir, may I have your permission to ask a question?
Sir? Okay, sir. Hierarchical structure has to be followed. Okay.
Sir, I am Air Marshal Tarun Chaudhary, and through the course of the discourse today, MDO has largely been kind of defined as a complex network of capabilities where highly dynamic operations can be carried out in a time-compressed or a time-sensitive environment. Now, my question to you is, sir, when you look at what should be focused towards MDO, is it to get multi-domain capabilities within a service, or in an operation based on the objective and the environment, there is always a lead element or a lead service, and that service should be supported by the various elements. The MDO focus should be more about creating a common architecture. The question is, should the MDO focus be more about creating a common architecture wherein a lead service based on the objective should be able to bank on support from all domains, whether it is cyber, info, land or maritime, and still achieve the objective, instead of trying to create these domain capabilities within a given service? Thank you, sir.
I think you have answered your own question. I fully agree with you. That is what is jointness, integration, and eventual theaterization is all about. That we have to carry out joint planning. We have to ensure that there is a joint application of force, and all services pool in their resources towards attainment of the objective which is set out by the either COSC or from higher directives. So I fully agree with you. Not in addition to that, each service has got its own, I would say, environment where it fights the war, whilst contributing towards the common objective of what you have mentioned. And there is no question in that, and I am not debating that. That is a given, that we have to define what objective to be achieved, and then thereafter, which platform, which service, how many numbers to be utilized, that is decided by a certain number of people, and then that is utilized. But if that service doesn't have those capabilities which are required to function in that environment, then we are defeating the purpose of that service itself. Like, for example, Indian Navy, we operate in all 4 domains plus rest of the domains. We operate below the surface, we operate on the surface, we operate in the air, we sometimes operate from land. We have to. That is our job, to ensure the larger maritime security, which is our charter. Now, one cannot question that you cannot have this element, because that is required for meeting my mandate at sea. So, if I have to have an aircraft, if I have to have a helicopter, if I have to have a certain kind of platform, those are a must for me to meet the demands of the mandate at sea. So, similarly for Air Force, similarly for the Army. So that I think is a constant and continuous debate. I'm sure once the theatres are formed, which will happen very soon, we will come to the same grid. I think all this debate will, hopefully come to an end. Thank you very much. I think the red light is on, and your lunch is also ready. It has been a pleasure talking to you. And any questions which are not answered, I am available for lunch, during lunch. Lunch apna khayega. I am free to answer that under Chatham House rules. Thank you very much.
May I now request Chief of the Naval Staff to receive a memento from Air Officer Commanding in Chief, Training Command, Indian Air Force. Firstly, the Run Samvad memento. May I now request Chief of the Naval Staff to receive the Headquarter Training Command memento. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the culmination of proceedings of this session. May I now request all the earmarked officers and dignitaries to proceed for the group photograph followed by lunch. Sir? No hand. I'll just check. Sir? No, please.